Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Could everyone rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Councilman Slacko, could you please lead us? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And roll call, please.
Councilman McIntosh?
Here.
Councilwoman Martin?
Here.
Councilman Slackton?
Here.
Mayor Nelson?
Here.
Councilman Simmons?
Here.
Councilman Gibson?
Here.
Councilman Longcart?
Here.
All right, good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Mayor.
All right, and at this time, of course, this is the City Council's workshop to consider the Citizens Watershed Strategy Task Force recommendations and the famous DRGR discussion that we will continue to have here. So at this time, we're going to ask for public comment. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter, please come forward. I know somebody did.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Ed Fitzgerald. I lived in Bonita for 23 years in an area of the city subject to flooding. I do not represent any group, but I hope I speak honestly for the majority of Bonita residents when I say we. I'm here this morning with saddened heart, saddened because there may be disagreement within this council as to what is to be the future of the DRG lands. I'm saddened to think that you all do not honor the sentiments of the majority of the people as we tell you we do not need, want, or welcome development of lands put aside to stop urban sprawl and to protect our water supply. We have told you that we reject every DRG study which tried but failed every time to change that sentiment. We do not appreciate those who attempt to develop thousands of acres of environmentally sensitive land that has been protected for decades with appropriate conservation-minded zoning laws, enacted for the good and welfare of the past, present, and future population of much of Bonita Springs, Estero, and Collier County. Proponents for development may say that the existing property rights of the current landowners are restrictive or limiting. They do this without addressing the fact that those landowners were aware of the conservation zoning that applied when they purchased their land. Nor do they acknowledge these same homeowners had the prerogative to apply for zoning changes for the past 20 or more years. But what we are concerned about now is that there are others who seek to rezone the entire area. They quote unproven and conflicting data from prior studies paid for by taxpayers' dollars. They seek the Bonita City Council to join their advocacy for changing the present 1-in-10 zoning ratio. Then I say to you that I do not believe advocacy for changing zoning is the prerogative of this City Council. Rather, preservation of the present land use zoning should be your obligation. I will say this again for myself, and I hope for many Bonita residents unable to attend this meeting. We do not need, want, or welcome development of the DRG lands, and that planning for development was not the mission given to the Water Task Force. I thank you very much for hearing me this morning.
Thank you very much. Anyone else this time, please come forward.
Hi, I'm Deborah McLean, publisher of the Banana Peel. I will say briefly that no matter, as we lift the moratorium and we acknowledge the existing zoning, that no matter how glossy or complete and correct an application, no matter how slick the speaker, you are under no obligation legally to increase the density, yet morally to keep it the same.
Thank you. Anyone else this time? Thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
I don't really understand the format of this right now.
Could you give your name?
Tori Polanitsa.
Thank you, Tori.
Speaking as an individual resident of Bonita Springs in the DRGR, there are a lot of people that cannot attend the meetings because they're at work. I am here representing a group not in favor necessarily of increasing a lot of development, but when I hear the first gentleman speak, it disregards everything that the other group of people in Bonita are looking for some changes in the DRGR to improve the water quality, to make improvements on the roads. Logan Boulevard is coming up here, the extension. The high school is planning on building. There are churches coming out there. We have traffic problems. Whether people want more people in Bonita or not, people are moving here and coming. And this area has been blighted for 20 years. So please, don't take just this idea that any development is the only thing happening out there, that just tons of houses coming out there is the only issue here. There are larger issues here, and a do-nothing position is just not going to help us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, Mayor, Council.
I'm going to pass out. You finally made it to that microphone.
4 years, maybe you give me 4
Look
minutes.
at you. This is a special occasion.
Is this the first time?
Let the record reflect. Carry on.
My name is Peter O'Flynn. I live on Ibis Cove Court in beautiful Bonita Springs. As you said before, another year, another DRGR discussion. Just a few points. Over the last 10 years, the city has paid literally hundreds of thousands of dollars for reports that have essentially pushed for development in the DRGR. And this council and councils before it have consistently said, no, we don't want that. The last one was a year ago when the report actually said something to the effect of there may not even be a basis for the zoning as DRGR. Kind of a capricious claim, if you will. And thankfully, this council at that time said we won't even accept that report. Now, in deciding to hold a line with respect to not increasing density, this council has been in plenty of good company. For example, a few years ago, Regional Planning Council looked at the Bonita DRGR, and they came up with a recommendation not only that the density be maintained, but actually in 2 large sections that the density be reduced. And you may be aware there is a federal study that has suggested that you might want to consider a large filter marsh in a large undeveloped part of the DRGR that's agricultural land. And as recently as 3 weeks ago, that federal agency confirmed that that suggestion is still under active consideration. As far as today, I'd make the following point. Every one of these studies that you have rejected has consistently said you ought to have increased development standards as a pathway to increased density. The majority of this council has consistently rejected that. So I would ask that today you continue to reject increased development standards unless you believe there should be increased density out there. And obviously, I think obviously, don't go forward spending taxpayer dollars with yet another city-sponsored initiative for comprehensive plan change. Now, with that said, I think it needs to be said that we have private property owners that have come forward with a request, I gather, to change the comprehensive plan. If they have done that, that's their right, and they have to be given due process. So you need to distinguish the rights of property owners from what the city council might want to initiate. Last point I would make, we all of us friends sat in this room last year and years before, and there was a lot of talk last year of, my gosh, if we wanted to preserve this land and we think we should preserve it, how in the world would we possibly get the money? Well, just yesterday, this city council basically rejoiced and thanked Governor Scott for over $10 million that was sent to protect environmentally sensitive land. That request was supported by this city council. The only issue is that land wasn't in Bonita Springs, it was in Collier County. So you might want to think going forward that maybe some of that money could be available here for us as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else this time, please come forward.
My name is Marianne Ziegler, and I live in San Remo.
Hello.
My premise is simple, and I'd ask you to consider this. No amount of elaborate rhetoric can deny the fact that our top priority needs to be the water, clean water, and the ever-recurrent flooding problems. Otherwise, what kind of legacy would we be leaving to our children and our grandchildren? We need land preservation, land that acts as a filter for the river of grass. I'm not sure what the answer is, but I have an idea, like some of those presented by the speakers who spoke before me. I do know one thing. It cannot be accomplished with developmental sprawl, so we need to act on this, and we need to act now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Martha Simons, City of Bonita Springs resident, and isn't it fun to govern ourselves? Thank God for living in America. I know all of us in this room, or most of us, are concerned about Bonita Springs and the vision that was set forth by the initiating city council and residents in our comp plan. Let me tell you what it states, and then I'll get to a little something else. This is in the vision statement number 2, which was supported by a majority of the citizens of Bonita Springs. We are a community that actively practices its appreciation of the great natural environment that has been given to us and educates new arrivals and the young about the stewardship it requires. It should be a green city because through environmental consciousness, because of its protection of the natural systems, pristine beaches and greenways, through environmental consciousness, stringent pollution controls, and recycling, Bonita Springs should be a Florida leader in the area of municipal protection of the environment. That is an awesome statement. And that was a bold statement. It takes being bold, it takes being gutsy. Let me read to you real quick, if I can. I'm going to kind of edit it. I'm not going to tell you where this place is, but you know it. This place compromises a wide variety of natural and altered environments. The community strives to sustain ecological balance and preserve and restore natural settings for the residents, visitors, and wildlife. The specter of rampant development has diminished as the community has matured. Nevertheless, unwanted changes are occurring. Visitation increases and new attractions are developed. Beaches and refuge areas are being stressed by overuse. Traffic congestion is turning to gridlock, and formerly green scenic corridors are becoming urbanized and commercialized. These and other conditions and trends cause residents to realize that unless protected, their community's historic and cherished way of life is in jeopardy. To provide a sense of direction, this vision statement was created. Okay, so the city will resist pressures to accommodate increased development and redevelopment that is inconsistent with its plan and vision statement, like our vision statement. The city will guard against and, where advisable, oppose human activities in jurisdictions other than our own that might harm sensitive habitats. This place shall remain a small town community whose members choose to live in harmony with one another and with nature, creating a human settlement distinguished by its uniqueness, beauty, character, and stewardship. That is the city of Sanibel, and that was written by Gary Price and Bob Pritt, both Bonita Springs residents. And we think of Sanibel as maybe the gem of Southwest Florida, really. I mean, we love Bonita Springs, but they have put safeguards in place and over a period of 40 plus years have created a unique community. We have that opportunity, and yes, I know it's altered there, and Tori is completely right. I agree with many of the recommendations that are in the, and thank all the members for coming together. It was dedication and perseverance to be on that water task force. I thank everybody, the staff, the members. It was hard work, and I thank them. But your persistence in maintaining our vision of being a Florida leader is going to happen. I mean, you just have to do that. Stewardship being the key word, and vigilance. Just be vigilant, move forward, do the right thing, clean up the water, get it right. We have a unique opportunity because never before in our lives have we had a congressman from Bonita Springs who's very concerned about water, the Everglades, and the environment. And he's dedicated to getting us funding if we need it. So if there are projects that you see are worthy, land acquisition that you see is worthy, as spoken by Mr. Flynn previously, in the city of Bonita Springs, you can do that. So thanks for your dedication, and thank you, Tori and Scott and everybody else, Fred, everybody, and Colum, Nicole, everybody's on the task force. Thanks, Council.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, Council. Andy Tilton for the record. I just wanted to speak on a couple of issues related to the city, which also includes the DRGR. There have been several studies that have provided for monitoring and things through the years, and I think monitoring and providing new data is always a good thing because it helps us to figure out trends and to be able to figure out what inputs and what alterations we're making to the land. And so I'm always for additional monitoring, whether it's water levels, water quality, and we're doing some of that for the city at this time, but I would encourage you to keep moving forward with that. The one thing that's also been discussed a lot, and that is modeling. The city has a very good model, and the engineers that have used it both within the city and outside the city as consultants, as I am, have found that it fits very well. Now, that doesn't mean that it's a static issue. In 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, it probably will need to be updated with changes, with new monitoring information that's been collected. But there is adequate information there to provide decisions today on things, whether they're on this side of I-75 or on the other side of I-75. It's a really good model. You have paid for it, and it's usable, and it works very well. So I would encourage you and your staff to continue to use that as your guidance in making decisions within the entire city. And I don't see needing to one more year of data. We've got 30, 40 years worth of data in some cases here. I don't see that one more year's worth of data is going to make a big difference one way or the other. It will help you in looking at trends, but it won't change a decision because of 1 year's worth of data, because we don't know if it's going to rain a lot or rain a little bit. And so that's why 1 year is very difficult to make use of. And in of itself, it's always valuable, but by itself, 1 year is very difficult to make decisions from. And so I would just encourage you to look at all the recommendations. I commend the task force because they had a difficult task and they did a great job. Also, looking at the water supply is very adequate both for now and for the future. In fact, the permits that the BSU has are for more than what they're withdrawing now, and they could easily increase their withdrawals and still be well within their permit. And so adequate water supply is there. And I thank you much, and have a good day.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Rick Berlansky. I'm a professional engineer. I'm vice president at Home Montez, and I'd like to submit a letter of objection to a couple of the task force recommendations. I attended quite a few of the task force meetings as well as the workshop, and there was two consistent remarks or recommendations by the task force saying they need additional stormwater modeling, they need additional monitoring in the DRGR area. And I'd like to say that one of the first meetings that was held was a presentation by your own city engineer, Matt Feeney, who gave an excellent presentation on the Phase 1 and Phase 2 master surface water and quality models. And I don't know if that information was ignored or just not digested by task force members, but it clearly stated that you do have a quantity model that's already in place that we've worked with that is very accurate. It's calibrated. It's been based upon water monitoring data as well as a lot of other data sources. And every time that we've used it, we found it closely consistent to the field information and the physical properties that we found in the field conform very well to the model results. So based on those two facts, you have a model in place that's based on credible water monitoring data. We just don't see any reason for you to delay your actions on the DRGR area just for those two reasons. So with that, I'd like to submit my letter and thank you and the board for their time. Thanks.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Bill Morris. I'm with Morris DePue Associates. I'm Vice President and Professional Engineer, and I'm here today on behalf of the Bonita Grand Mine property. And I won't go into a lot of detail that you just heard from the two gentlemen who preceded me, but I will summarize and explain that my observations, based on 12 years of being involved with the Bonita Grand property, are very similar with their experiences, and the notions that have arisen that a couple of more years worth of monitoring are going to somehow change the information that has been developed over decades, has been collected and developed over decades, is not something that I agree with as a professional. I also agree that the modeling that the city has been working to develop over the past several years is accurate, it is calibrated, and it's worth maintaining. You've already got a substantial investment in this, and I don't see any reason to back away from it or find that there's any reason that you can't proceed with a clear understanding that you can't proceed not having a clear understanding of what you're engaged in. I'm going to submit a letter as well, but this pretty well just summarizes my intentions. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else this time? Please come forward.
Good morning. For the record, Nicole Johnson here on behalf of the Conservancy of Southwest Florida. And we do support the 34 recommendations that the Water Task Force presented to you for discussion today. But we really have to understand that just because these recommendations are out there, we have not yet gotten the water right. Implementation is going to be key. And so until those recommendations are acted upon and moved forward to the next steps, we really have not done our jobs completely. 34 recommendations can be tough to try to sift through and prioritize, so the Conservancy did provide you a letter with our recommendations on how to move forward and timing. The first category that we see really as the absolute immediate needs for the city, if the city is going to move forward, is to do the monitoring and do the modeling. We're talking about monitoring for the subsurface water levels. If there is applicable data out there, then the city needs to collect that from the various sources and see if there are gaps in that data that need to be supplemented with additional subsurface monitoring. And the second thing is to move forward on the modeling in tandem with that monitoring. The modeling would create a decision-making tool so the city can run a series of what-if scenarios. And we really believe that council needs to bite the bullet and request that staff find funding to implement and move forward with these two monitoring and modeling projects. So that's immediate. Then sort of the shorter term recommendations, those that the Conservancy thinks the city could implement realistically within about 3 to 9 months. Those are the policies that are really city policies, changes to ordinances, changes to the land development code that the city can fairly easily and hopefully with not a lot of cost move forward in the process. Things like better best management practices, higher stormwater standards. Also following up with the Spring Creek study, which was mentioned in one of our recommendations, there's a creeks overlay that is something that is lacking and really needed for the city. So looking at some of these citywide policies, these are going to create, I think, very, very good standards that can be applicable for future development at the existing density. at the current zoning. So we would ask that those recommendations, and the Conservancy did list them out specifically in the letter that we sent you, that those be acted on immediately also, with the hopes of getting them implemented 6 to 9 month time frame. And then there are the trickier recommendations, those that are really multi-agency, multi-year, multi-jurisdictional. A lot of these are going to be restoration type projects that would occur on public lands, that require input and buy-in and funding from the Water Management District, perhaps DOT, other agencies. It's going to take you quite a while to actually get those projects to completion. So we ask that you start that now, understand that it is going to be a long process, but a very important process. And one final thought is, I know that there has been some discussion of whether the city should almost immediately start a citywide comprehensive plan amendment process to create an overlay for the DRGR, and the Conservancy does not support that. Like I said, implementation of these recommendations has to be the first thing, so we think it's premature and counterproductive for the city to initiate a comprehensive plan amendment. And with that, I know that I and our other task force members are certainly here for discussion and answering questions as you go through your workshop today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else this time? Please come forward.
Yeah, there were a number of good speakers today. It's Fred
And
Forbes.
your name for the record? Thank you very much.
For the record, Fred Forbes. Moved here in '97. A number of good speakers with public comments have addressed you. I think the 2 or 3 that come to mind the most would be what Peter O'Flynn said when he set a record and did it the first time here. He was spot on. I think that I agree with almost everything that Nicole said. I think the only thing I would do is those things that would modify the land development code, which could be done in 3 to 9 months. I think it would be better to wait until at least what the other several speakers have opposed, which is the water monitoring and the modeling. And so we're all clear on what the modeling is. It's not building a new model. It's taking an existing model. There's one like Roger Kopp used, who is a nationally known flood modeling expert that did led the 09 South Florida Water Management Lee County Southwestern study. Take a model and you validate the model against the data that you collect for that 1 year period. And that's you're not building a model from the ground up. You could same time use the one that the city has and tweak it to, and then you might have 2 different models, or you may have one. I think one thing about it, the city council needs to be proactively involved in the selection of whoever's going to do this modeling, whoever's going to do the water monitoring. This is something that you all need to have an input in because it's very important. The other thing I want to say is that we have a couple things. Those that are wanting the density and intensity increase are those that primarily acquired property or have options on the property when they knew what the ratio and the intensity was out there. That's a whole lot different than somebody that owns 15 acres and has owned it for their life. And I think at some point we have to look at that, but this is not the time to do that. And their rights are just what they are now, 1 in 10, and the intensity of use that's there. There's no obligation by anybody to change that. All those property owners have the right to come and propose a comp plan amendment for their project. And they would, I would think, would get a fair and impartial hearing in front of council. That's the rights. The thing that they're entitled to, this change, is not correct. And you guys have, and in the past, city council, you have in the past consistently either turned down or simply not voted to increase the intensity and density in the DRGR. So the decision has been made at least 3 to 4 times. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else this time? Please come forward.
Morning, gentlemen and lady. Mayor, thank you for letting me talk to you again, and thank all of you for your service. If you remember last time I talked to you...
And your name for the record, Dan.
Pardon me?
Dan Wagner, your name for the
Yeah,
record?
Dan Wagner. I've lived here since '98.
That's rather...
Most of the people know me. Last time I was here, I talked to you about did you know us? A little different subject, but same theme today. I wonder who the people are, and I'd like to discuss that with you a little bit, that are backing additional density in the DRGR. I've got some thoughts. I know it's not the state of Florida government because they just bought property northwest of our DRGR, the same kind of property, and they bought it to keep the density down. So it's certainly not them. Yeah, I don't think it's this council. They voted 3 times to keep the density as it is. How many more votes do we need to keep the density where it is? That's a question. So certainly they're not in favor at this point, okay? A lot of us that are conservative in the community and happy to have Clausen for our representative in the, in the U.S. government, we're not interested in it. He's not interested in it. We're not interested in it. So, could it be the Chamber of Commerce? No, there's a thought. Chamber of Commerce, are they interested in more density? So there's more people here to buy more goods, to make more profits? It's a possibility. I'm not saying that's the case, but it sounds like it could be. There's a few other people that would be interested in it, such as the people that own property there now. They bought it with a very low density. That's where they wanted to live because of that. Now they hear the rumbling about an increased density, and could it be that they're looking for profits? There's a lot of people lived in this community for a long time, longer than I've been here, and I know that they have property, some of the business likewise, in the DRGR. That smells for profit as far as I'm concerned. We can't trade good quality water and more flooding for dollars. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Anyone else this time? Please come forward.
Good morning. I'm David Gallagher from Cedar Creek.
Dave.
Just a few, I had the privilege of serving on the Water Task Force. I shall report it was both a very interesting and unique experience. As the end came, I was
Indeed.
pretty happy the end was coming. At the same time, I was disappointed we perhaps should have had one more meeting to go back and rehassle some of the recommendations and make them a bit more precise. And so what I tried to do is just focus on what I thought was the most important recommendations. And surprisingly, I really like the combinations of recommendations 15 and 19 and the water quality. For example, for the recommendation 19, it says the council shall consider a water quality and quantity modeling effort to create a decision-making tool to better understand how individual proposed water projects may impact Bonita Springs area. Decision-making tool, hallelujah. And then recommendation 15 says, recommend the city solicit, and it's either sole source or multi-source, an RFP for the following scope of work, which is very similar to what was talked about with Kevin Irwin. We think the contract should be administered through the city. However, the model should be executed by an individual or organization that would be unbiased and not profit from any use of the model. The proposed work should start with identifying existing sources of water monitoring data that affect the Imperial River watershed, and also identify what additional monitoring stations are needed to measure water quantity and quality improvements. The work should identify proposed locations, type of monitoring, frequency, duration, cost, and responsibility for performing and monitoring the work. Now, the preliminary cost estimate for setting up and monitoring 50 stations on a monthly basis for 1 year, as suggested by Kevin Irwin, is about $50,000 if volunteers are used. This does not include the cost of developing new models or upgrading existing models, nor is it the cost of paying the analysts to do the work. Now, the good news is that our CPI for 14 through 19 on page 145 contains $3 million for water projects. And on page 24, there's another $1.4 million shown as a placeholder for out-year water quantity projects. All right, to wrap it up, to obtain a balanced approach to understanding the impact of water issues facing Bonita Springs, the council should also fund internal efforts to upgrade any existing public works model. The objective would be have 2 models achieving a check and balance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else, please come forward.
Hi, Ron Pure, TAG, and Bonita Springs resident for, well, since 1992. And I tell you guys, attached to the recommendations here, miscellaneous number 5, increase the millage rate citywide by 0.10% for a minimum of 10 years, which funds shall be placed in a segregated fund to be used specifically for water quality, quantity, and groundwater resources. Look, this is a door opener. I presented to all you folks a month or 2 ago our concept of what you ought to be doing with respect to growth in the city. And I think that while you're working on this DRGR business, concurrent with that, you can address your impact fee structure and add to it what we recommended, and that is to expand the obligation for the developers, builders, et cetera, that wish to do their deed in Bonita Springs, impose on them a new impact fee, which will bring our water needs in the city, and that is not only drinking water, but those having to do with drainage, et cetera, up to speed and where we ought to be. Ben, you've mentioned many times that we're surrounded by water. Indeed, we are. It's not just the groundwater that we should be concerned with. We should be moving forward with a new, additional, to repeat, impact fee to cover all of those issues having to do with water. Other places have done it successfully. No reason why we ought not to. And that is one of my hopes. Now, with respect to this tax, I don't know where the folks are coming from when they want us, those folks on the water task force, they want us, the property owners, to assume the responsibility for all of those things that you're going to be discussing tonight and or this morning and in the near future. So let's put the tax issue to bed as soon as possible. It's outrageous that anyone would consider that we ought to be paying for the damage done for past years and what's proposed now and in the future. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else this time, please step forward.
Good morning, Scott Duvall. I just want to address Mr. Pure because the tax issue was something that I think the task force came up with to kind of gauge the importance of getting the water right for the citizens of Bonita Springs. A few years ago, 3-4 years ago, when we need to do beach renourishment, there was a discussion about a special assessment for people living on the beach. And that was met with an outcry for people living on the beach saying, well, everybody enjoys the beach. Why do we have to pay for it? Everybody enjoys clean water. That's why everybody has to pay for it. I think it's foolish to increase impact fees on new development. That's the I've got mine, nobody else should have theirs mentality. And I think if people truly want to get the water right, they'll all do their fair share. Secondly, I don't think we're here today necessarily to talk about increasing development or increasing density or those issues, other than what the task force came up with, which was, to the extent there's any development in the DRGR, make sure we put in place some intelligent low impact design standards and best management practices so that we get the water right. Again, I think the people who are coming here saying, you know, there should be no development in the DRGR are missing the point of today's discussion, which is to talk about what the Water Task Force recommended, none of which dealt with density. And then I guess finally what I'd like to do is remind everybody to go read the city's comprehensive plan. If you look, there's a provision, I don't have it in front of me, I apologize, that said that the city would investigate and study the DRGR area and then make a determination as to the best land use out there and change the land use accordingly. I think we've been punting for so long and blaming study after study and saying, well, let's do a new study. I brought some of the studies with me today that the task force studied. I've got a box, if you're interested, of documents, and I'd encourage you to read them all because we did, if you haven't. And so I think we've studied it long enough, and we just need to make a decision, whether it's to increase development, not increase development. That's not today's discussion. So let's keep our eye on the ball. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else this time? Please come forward.
I'm short. I'm also Carolyn Gallagher. Good morning. We're a year down the road now, and the Water Task Force is finished, and it's up to the city to execute its chosen recommendations. Now, please consider doing the data and modeling first. It will take a full 4 seasons to collect the data and additional time to model it. Afterward, you will be able to see what other projects are the best use of your money and also the best for the environment. There was discussion about the data this morning, and the question was, do we have the data? Some people say yes, and some people say no. I know Kevin Irvin's position was we do not have the subsurface sheet flow data that we need for this particular project. As far as the modeling goes, if we have a model on hand that's usable, that's wonderful. But we just need to make sure we understand what kind of data we need and whether we have it or not. Thankfully, right now we have low density in the DRGR, and it is crucial for aquifer recharge and doing some of the selected water projects to help with flooding. And it's also crucial for keeping our well fields free of contaminants or safe from contaminants. I know you can't keep a business from applying for a change in the comp plan or submitting a development request, but the city doesn't need to initiate it. People and businesses who own in the DRGR right now bought with the low density designation, and they aren't losing anything if the area stays the way it is, whereas the whole city could lose if the area is changed. Now, those who say that we have got our piece of paradise and don't want others to share are wrong. We want our lands to remain a paradise for those who come after us, with our city affordable and solvent, our traffic and flooding managed, and with a healthy water supply. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else this time? Please come forward.
Hello, Dennis Gilkey, Bonita Springs. I was hoping the format would be where we could interact on the recommendations of the task force, but since everyone else has gotten up, I'll do it. But let me start by saying that I've been here since 1984. In the late 80s, I was involved in a group called the Bonita Study Group, which was tasked to look at the comprehensive plan for all of Bonita Springs, including the DRGR. We submitted a comprehensive plan amendment. The county staff, planning staff at that time, was joined at the hip with us for throughout 3 years. We submitted a comprehensive plan to the county. It was well received. And then comes the state. Basically, at that time, the state was very much involved in local land use decisions. They struck a deal with one of our county commissioners called the DRGR. I then asked the planning director, I said, what happened to our comp plan amendment? I said, you've been working with us for 3 years. He said, we had to keep a lid on growth, and we can readdress this in about 5 years. And I will testify anywhere legal I need to. I know that person is still in Lee County. He's not the planning director anymore. A subsequent planning director for Lee County made the statement to me that the DRGR in Bonita Springs was a mismark. It was a mismark. So how this became sacred ground, that's how it became sacred ground over the last 25 years, by a mismark. Now, and part of that is what I've given you in the information of let's finish the city plan. That's what we need to do, finish the city plan. The task force recommendations are water related. We did not talk about density. I had some things that I wanted to throw in there and got rejected, and that's fine. But I think what this council has to do is give the staff direction. If you're not going to do a city-initiated comp plan amendment, fine. Make sure the staff knows that, so as they go through ordinances and changing the processes that Nicole has mentioned, I've given you my way that it can be done over the next couple of years as well. Then that will affect probably the timing and the priorities of the staff if someone comes in, or they will, for comprehensive plan amendments by the landowners, and you want to have these other mechanisms, some of them in place prior to their approvals, or prior to their zoning particularly. So you need to get at least to that point at some point, probably not today, but at some point. Now, on the recommendations themselves, just two things that I think there was only two that I abstained from several, probably about a third or maybe 30-40% of these I abstained from due to conflict. But there was two that I did vote against. One of them was on the monitoring that referenced 50 additional monitoring stations. I can tell you in the Big Cypress Basin, which is pretty much all of Collier County, over a couple 100,000 acres, they have like 32 monitoring stations. Why do we need 50 for 2,500 acres, which was the limit that the monitoring stations were proposed? It was very excessive. So that I was for the monitoring, but not for 50 stations. I think that's very excessive. The other thing I voted against, I was a sole dissenting vote against the additional tax. It's not 0.1% of the tax base, it's 12% because it's 0.1 mills, which is 12% of our current ad valorem millage. So again, it's not a bad idea, it's just I don't think it's going to go anywhere, and I think you probably agree. There's plenty of opportunities for public-private partnering, and I think you should take advantage of that. It's already been offered. I think when the staff originally put this in front of you with the Baracco study and other things that were done, I think they thought that let's get some of these data and analysis and monies, whether it be impact fees or tax dollars or study money for study, through the private sector as well, so that it's not all being, the bill's not all being foot by the city council. So I think that's a key element going forward is public-private partnering with the landowners. This is a great opportunity for economic and traffic improvements, as well as environmental and water improvements with responsible development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else this time? Please come forward.
Mayor, Council, I'm George Jonas, and I'm here today on behalf of the Bonita Grand Mine. We understand that the city has resumed processing the plan amendment now that the moratorium is over, and we are greatly appreciative of that fact. Given the delay associated with waiting for the Baracco study to be completed, then the moratorium, then the task force and the analysis recommendations, et cetera, we would request that the processing of the plan amendment continue expeditiously and without further delay. It does appear, however, that one key issue is whether there is a need for this additional data or groundwater monitoring and further modeling. At issue is whether this needs to be done before moving forward with consideration of the recommendations of the task force or with any land use changes. Respectfully, we believe that you already possess a wealth of extremely credible data from a variety of sources. You've just heard from some of the most respected private engineers in Southwest Florida and probably the state with the most extensive experience in water monitoring and modeling. That's namely Morris DePue, Johnson Engineering, and Hull Montes. You've heard in the past from one of the most respected agencies in the state, the South Florida Water Management District, whose mission, as you know, is to manage and protect the water resources in the South Florida District, and who employs some of the best minds in the industry. There have been numerous other studies, as Scott's pointed out, that's been done by equally credible professionals in the field. As the professional community has stated, they recommend the continued use of these excellent, approved, and calibrated models that are already approved and in place, with ongoing water monitoring and periodic updates as a matter of course on an ongoing basis. And the data is consistent in all cases, that from water quantity and flooding to water quality to groundwater recharge, reasonable development in the DRGR, particularly development of the mine, is not a negative factor and can actually serve to protect, promote, and enhance the water resources associated with this area of the city. The original designation of Southeast Lee County as a DRGR, as well as large areas in northern Lee County, was done 25 years ago to resolve litigation between the state and Lee County over the residential density allowed by the county's comprehensive plan. It was never intended to be a limitation forever on the developability of this property. Many properties have been reclassified out of the DRG over the years, particularly in the southeastern part of the county, including the university and other lands that are developing with sensitivity to water quantity and quality. We urge you to consider these other areas that have resulted in the kind of responsible development that we're talking about here. Now, if you want to simply take an anti-growth platform, if you don't want more cars on your roads, if you don't want more people at the beach, then just say so. But please don't make decisions for the wrong reasons. Please don't discredit the professional community, including your own consultants and staff. Please don't regard the overwhelming evidence that supports development in this area and the increase in tax base and revenues and the opportunity for private-public partnerships that it brings. It doesn't serve this council or this city well to do anything other than to rely on the facts and the empirical data. On behalf of the mine and its owners, we stand ready before you to move forward in a cooperative and constructive fashion. My final comment is directed toward the folks that said that there was this knowledge that purchase of property was the understanding of no increase in density. When the mine was annexed into the city, it was with the full contemplation that it would be used best efforts to eventually convert the property into. Again, I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else this time? Please come forward.
Good morning, Council. I'm Cullum Hasty.
Good morning.
And I want to mention to you, we've covered this issue extremely well, I think, this morning. I want to mention that the river is doing well. It's in beautiful condition right now. I'm happy to say it seems to have been improved over the years. We have to tread lightly to keep it that way, but I think most of us have canoed on and probably walked. There's a fairly new trail out there. What's the name of that trail? Oh, Cullum's Bonita Trail. That's it. And the trail's really doing well. It's getting a lot of use. I wish we had a way to track empirical data to track the usage of the trail. Maybe we can figure something out there. I'd be curious to know how I know it's increasing in activity. It'd be interesting to see just exactly what the usage is. But it's doing great and is beautiful, and it really depends tremendously on the condition of the water, because that river, being a river running through a developed area, it's very sensitive to any increase in pollution. But so far, we seem to be in an improving trend, and I hope it continues. These recommendations right here will really go a long way toward protecting and improving the health and beauty of the once and future treasure of Bonita, which is the Imperial River. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Anyone else this time? Please come forward. Okay. Gone. All All right, that's it for our public comment. And now let's, Carl, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you and our staff to give your presentation. For
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've just got a few things to say. First off, I very much appreciate the manner in which the task force has operated over the last year. This is clearly an important topic to this entire region, not just our city. And I think it's created an opportunity for important community dialogue throughout this last year and even beyond that. I do want to take the opportunity to thank the task force members, the presenters who came on their own time for the most part to provide information to the task force. We appreciate them. We appreciate, of course, our staff that also did the same and provided whatever information was requested and needed by the task force. Especially I want to thank John Gucciardo, who I assigned as the liaison to this committee. It was a lot of work, not just for the committee members, but a lot of work in the offices to get ready for each of those meetings. And I appreciate that, John. And with that, since he is kind of the man with regards to the staff and the liaison to this committee, I'm going to introduce him now to provide some introductory remarks. John, thank you.
Thank you. And it actually was, I can say this without hesitation, a pleasure to work with that group. It was a very interesting year-long experience and hopefully a worthwhile one for the council and the city. Let me start off by saying that I've heard the task force described lots of different ways, but I can tell you that one of the things they were not was a group that was designed to, I think it was referenced today, plan for development. The word strategy shows up in their title, and my understanding, and I believe their understanding, was that they were tasked to put together a strategy to address various water-related issues as they relate to the DRGR, but understanding that as they develop this strategy, it may bleed over to formulating initiatives that would have to do with lands outside of the DRGR, just a natural relation between the lands inside and outside that area. I think Scott Duvall summed up very well one of the maybe misconceptions that's going on. This was not about allowing for or being proponents for new development. Rather, it was the understanding of the task force that they were trying to devise strategies to help the council deal with issues if there was development. In other words, what could we put in place to best protect the city if things were to change out there, not proposing that they were advocating for any particular kind of change. What you'll see in front of you are the 34 recommendations that grew out of that. Some are listed as projects, some are listed as policies. Don't get married to those words. They kind of bleed back and forth between each other, but we tried as best we could to separate the two out. Some have to do with things that the city of Bonita Springs can do independently. Others have to do with things that the city of Bonita Springs can merely encourage, support, and promote. Most are things that can be done within a reasonable amount of time, but that reasonable amount of time changes depending on the nature of the actual thing. And as was indicated previously, some are relatively easy to accomplish in short periods of time. Some may take years. And for the most part, the task force was very particular about not addressing specific property owners and specific pieces of property. I think there was one exception that they made to that position that they tried to take. And the reason for that was that they were very sensitive during the course of all these discussions about private property rights and not trying to impact by these particular recommendations anyone's vested or perceived to be vested rights. What I hope to be able to do today is to lead you through a discussion on all 34 of those topics. You have available to you here, and I would encourage you to take advantage, avail yourself of the fact that you have your staff here that you can ask questions of. You have all 7 of the task force members, former task force members. The task force has been disbanded, so they're not subject to sunshine. They can actually speak to each other and to you. But they are here. Please avail yourself of that. Ask them questions. Interact with them, with your staff. You also have representatives of various agencies, Water Management District, the BSU. If questions come up about any of these particular recommendations, get their input if you think that's valuable. We have, or I have already met with staff, both community development staff and public works, to get their input and insight as to some of these recommendations, and I can walk you through what they have described to me as their reactions, but again, they are here for you to speak to them directly. So with that, and finally, let me say, before I turn it over to you, again, what we are hoping to do is to just get direction from council today. I will try to keep a running tab of which of the recommendations you are interested in adopting formally and which maybe you have would give us direction that you're not interested in adopting. We will bring all of them back to you at a future meeting in February, an actual city council meeting, at which point you can make your formal vote on which ones you'll go forward with and not. So direction would be valuable today, but an actual vote on those particular recommendations is not necessarily required today. Any questions?
Questions, council? Council, if see if this jives with what staff's looking at too. If you would allow me, we'll go through each one of these one at a time, from number one on through the other ones. We'll have a discussion about each one. Let you talk about each one. Somebody can make a recommendations to do it, to not do it, to modify it, to do whatever. We'll see how that goes, and then we'll just move on like that. Would that be all right? Yes, Steve.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned on Objective B of the task force was to present the mayor and council with a strategy for a sustainable course of action. I think the recommendations all sort of make sense, maybe standing alone, some together, but I don't see a strategy. You know, I don't see measures. I don't see the opportunity to meld this together. If we're going to go through piece by piece, I think you end up with a piecemeal approach to what we're trying to do. And I'm not asking to reform this task force. That's not what I'm asking to do. But I would like to have a more coherent, I guess, look at, and I've talked to some of the task force members about, well, how do you put this together? How do you determine what's the priorities are? If it's more monitoring, that's fine, but I think I'm a little uncomfortable, a little unclear on what it is that we're presented today, even though I've read the thing and I've read all the letters. May I ask, Mr. Mayor, we have some professionals in the room who haven't made presentations. I don't want to put them on the spot, but the South Florida Water Management Task Group has been referenced as supporting something, not supporting something. I see Phil Flood in the back of the room. I'd like to know what their opinion is of these projects and priorities before we start. If it's inappropriate, all you got to do is tell me, or if Phil doesn't want to do it, that's also fine. But
Council, you don't have any objection to having Phil come up and tell him what he thinks about the right? Phil?
I'm sorry, Phil.
Phil probably doesn't want to, but
and all you got to do is say no.
That's what you get for showing up, pal.
I didn't talk to you. I didn't talk to you ahead of time.
No. I can't say no. I came down here to be of assistance, and I apologize. Phil Flood with the South Florida Water Management.
And it's just to probably help us a little bit. If you feel so inclined, it would be helpful to us if you thought, if you're familiar with what these recommendations are, if there are some that you feel comfortable either saying that's a good idea or that's not a good idea, feel free to do so. And if you don't want to do that, we get it. Okay? So have that.
I wasn't anticipating making planned comments on each and every one of them. I did sit down with city staff and talk with them about some of the concerns, and I did participate in many of the meetings, the workshops here, and I have to commend the task force. I'm a big fan of Scott Duvall now, but the task force members did an incredible job dedicating a lot of time and put a lot of thought into this, and there are some great recommendations in here, some of them that are going to be real challenges for y'all to decide whether or not you want to move in those directions. Some of them are policy issues in there, and our agency, the Water Management District, is listed in probably a third of those recommendations in there. And short of going through each and every one of them right this minute, I can tell you there's a couple of them that I really do like. Putting together a working group is a very good way of getting the community support around some of these projects to keep the community engaged, talking about these projects and moving forward. Whether or not the district is going to be the ones the recommendation is that the district would be overseeing that and coordinate that. That's, I'd have to have a little more discussion with your staff about what's going to be involved. That's some, quite some, the workload that'll be passed off to the Water Management District. But I think that's a great opportunity to talk about future projects, looking at sharing funding sources, pushing some of these projects forward and implementing those. Modeling was talked about quite a bit. That's a decision that y'all are going to have to decide. Modeling is very specific to what your intent is, what you're trying to get out of it. There's a couple of models that are already in place in the city that were developed specifically for specific activities, and so I think y'all need to define specifically what it is that you'd like to do, and then look towards your staff and some of the other folks in the community. Our staff would be more than happy to sit down and talk with y'all once you kind of define what it is that you're modeling. What's the outcome? What are you looking for? See if an existing model can be utilized, or if you need to invest in developing something new. But you do have a lot of resources down here, and your staff being one of them. You have some existing plans in place, which I always encourage you need to move forward on trying to implement some of those. A lot of your recommendations are land use decisions, and those are solely your responsibilities, not the Water Management Districts. We're not going to be getting involved in trying to tell you what is appropriate out there, but your land use, land development code improvements, recommendations that are in here, there's a lot of them over here. They're going to take some careful consideration by y'all in deciding which ones you want to move forward with. Couple of these, I think we need a little more clarification as what they are. Immediately support and fast track some projects for additional storage. That's a great idea, but I'm not certain if those projects are already identified, and maybe that's where a task force, or not a task force, this working group could look at. I'm not sure if the task force has some specific projects in mind there, but that's certainly a great idea to look at some of those. One of the specific ones that stuck out in my mind was to use the Kiel Canal for additional water storage. I'm not certain that is a reality. That we did put together a model for the Southern Crew project, and it envisioned utilizing more natural storage of the adjacent lands. And that model was specifically looking at flood control and looking at water storage. But one of the things they did not look at was raising the weir there, backing up some additional water. I honestly don't know what's the mindset here. If it's just simply raising the water levels in the canal, if it's excavating the canal out wider and deeper, but that's probably not a likely recommendation that could move forward. It would take some additional look at possibly doing so, but. I think one of the outcomes already that you've seen materialize is as a result of the task force discussions. One of the projects out there is the Southern Crew project, and at the urging of the city, I guess y'all put a letter out to the Water Management District, and we've agreed to fund that project this fiscal year. So the restoration of those lands out there is something that's moving forward here this fiscal year. We're in the permitting right now, but it's budgeted and it is actually going to happen. So I'd check that box as a real plus. You've already got one of the recommendations that was discussed by the task force there is moving forward. Bear with me. I'm just trying to skim over some of these here. And I did not anticipate to do this, but
if I can just interject for a second while Phil is gathering his thoughts, what I had hoped we'd be able to do, and not that this is inappropriate, but as we went through these, I've already got notations on the feedback I've gotten from the various agencies and departments that we've dealt with, and then kind of introduce them up as the issue came up.
That would probably be a good way.
Well, we hadn't had that conversation, so I didn't know that.
Sorry.
But the district stands ready to assist y'all when y'all decide, which one of these you're going to move forward with and work on. We're here to assist. We do have a funding program in place. But several of these projects would be perfect for our community, our cooperative funding program, and as always, we'll stand here to assist your staff and y'all.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right, Council, you ready?
Mayor, may I have
Okay, go ahead.
a question? Is it all right to have Scott Duvall come on?
Sure,
Okay.
go ahead. We got all day.
Scott, the current theme that I've been hearing this morning is that monitoring and modeling. Has that been those two recommendations, 15 and 19, are those, as the chairperson of that committee, is that what you feel also should be the way we should approach this thing?
I don't want to say any particular one or multiple recommendations are any more important than others. I know there are people who think the monitoring needs to happen before anything else happens, and I think what we've heard from some experts are additional monitoring is great, and I think the task force is in support of that, but I don't want it to be we've been monitoring and modeling things for years. To increase the amount of data points and things like that is always a good idea, but I don't want that to stop the process.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if you use one year of data. I mean, we heard Andy Tilton say it could be a really wet year, it could be a really dry year. You can't, I don't think you get a very good sample of data until you have a pretty significant number of years behind you. So to increase the accuracy of the data, I think is what the task force would be in favor of. But again, I don't think there's any one or two particular items or agenda items or recommendations that are any more important than others. I know a lot of people are focused on monitoring and data collection, but I think that's a personal choice, that's just my opinion. But
well, my point was I was just wondering about urgency here.
Well, no, okay. Well, and let's talk about urgency, because one of the things that Phil mentioned was that working group, and I neglected to mention that earlier. I think that's something that needs to go into place right away, because it's relatively easy to implement. And what we had thought about or considered was, water doesn't have geographic boundaries. There are all these agencies that need to be involved with the decision-making process. And for everybody to just have somebody on that working group who meets quarterly or a few times a year, brings each other up to speed as to what water projects they're working on, how it might impact them, just to kind of trade some information. And then if there's a particular regional project that makes sense to support, at least then they can discuss it as a group and say, hey, that's going to be a great project. Yeah, it might be expensive. Let's all pool our resources and get that done. That was our vision for that working group, and I think that, from a priority standpoint, is pretty important, and it really doesn't cost the city anything other than time. The monitoring, again, from a time perspective, is we're already monitoring, but to increase the number of data points or data collection or to modify the existing model, those can be done relatively quickly, I would think. And again, just to have that information, the sooner the better, to start that process, because you're not going to make a decision after a month of monitoring or even a year of monitoring. So,
good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Before we come off the rails even more than what our original plan on how to handle this is, have a seat.
Thank you.
I would suggest, Council, that we'll go ahead and take these one at a time. And so far as the underlying strategy here, I think it's pretty clear. That the goal was, how can we get the water right?
Absolutely.
What can we do right now?
Mm-hmm.
Right now, without monkeying around with any big time decisions? What are some things that are fairly simple that we can do? I would gather that's probably the underlying strategy that you came up with. What are some things that we can do that we can help clean the quantity of water and quality of water, or whatever it is? So that's the way I'm going to gather it. And so I think our job is to start at number one, and we'll start at number one and say, is this something that we're at least willing to have staff go take a look at and tell us how they would approach that? And that's going to be important too. Instead of us telling them, go do that, we should probably tell them as we go along here, or consider saying, go out there after and take every one of these, come back and tell us which one of these is doable and which one you can't, which it's going to cost, because you're going to want to know what's going to cost, everything like that. So they're going to be bringing it back and telling us that stuff. Would you all agree to that?
Clarification, you mean that they'll set the priorities?
No, we're going to go through here and tell them which ones we're at least interested in doing and implementing. They will go back out, ground truth the reality of implementing those things better, come back and say, okay, here's what we found out. Are you still wanting to do it? And we'll say, yeah. Is that the way everybody understands?
Back with a strategy and a vision.
How to put all that stuff together, probably. John, is that about what you were thinking?
Yes.
Okay, about. Okay, I'm just just trying to get this to where we can get organized and
got it.
and get out of here before another 15 years passes. Okay, here we go. That was a snarky remark, wasn't it? Water quantity, number 1. Implement and codify improvement of water retention and detention requirements in DRGR. Tell us a little bit about that, John. And
Okay,
then,
so currently we have regulations in place that talk about how much water needs to be retained, detained on a particular piece of land during development. All this says is, let's ratchet that up a little bit. Let's take our current standard and make it just a little bit better. We have absolutely no heartburn or problem with this from the point of view of community development or public works or legal. It seems like something that could be relatively easily done without a whole lot of delay.
Council, are you interested in having them investigate the implementation of that?
No,
You don't want to see
it's a
them?
development standard.
Okay, but it's a development standard, so you wouldn't personally be.
Correct.
Anybody else interested in having to do that?
I feel the same way. The Land Development Code is the first thing I have on the circle here. Of course, even 1.5 inches, I have no idea whether that is reasonable or unreasonable. It certainly sounds like a very low goal, and I agree with Peter, what he just said. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments?
Well, if you took land development code out of it, I assume that the Water Task Force went through this pretty carefully, and if that's what they think we ought to be doing in order to start this thing, if it didn't affect land development code, is that a different approach, or is that still not acceptable?
Well, from a personal point of view, it seems too small.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
yes,
But
yes.
again,
Let me go to John for 1 second to explain. John.
Let me try to put this in context a little better, and perhaps if I don't do a good job, somebody from community development can come in and help me out. But currently, we have a standard in place that indicates a certain level that we expect if there is development. This is not, again, not proposing any new developments. If something is going to be developed, there's a standard in place that talks about how much water they need to basically account for. And all this recommendation says is, that's great, we're getting good results from that, let's make it even better. Let's increase that obligation on the developer's part a little bit more. Does that kind of give you an idea where they're coming from?
In other words, the existing rule says to do something, this makes a recommendation that you do 10%, if
you're doing
you're
X,
allowed to
right.
do something out there, existing, even whatever it is, you have to do something at least 10% better. That's what it says.
That's what
at
the-
least
yeah.
10% better. That's the recommendation. Everybody get that? That's about it.
Do we want to do motions and vote or no?
Well, let's just do
Trying to get
we're going to do a
direction.
straw poll here first and just say who would be in favor of having them take a look at implementing something like that. I certainly would. I see no harm in doing that. So there's only 2 of us. So
well, I don't know. We haven't taken the straw vote, right?
Yeah, he just.
I'm doing it now. Raise your hand up if you're
There it is.
interested in doing something like that.
3.
That's 3, 4.
Better is better
More's
is better
better.
than what we
We're gonna do it.
have. So
So council, it looks like we don't want to do that. So that's out. Number 2.
We don't want to do that.
You don't want to do that. So number 2, immediately support and fast-track projects which create additional water storage in the Crew Lands, Pine Lake Reserve, Hidden Preserve. Explain us about this one a little bit. This seems to be pretty far-reaching.
And this kind of ties into miscellaneous recommendation number 3 that Phil has already made reference to, the idea of putting together a working group. And the working group, as Phil indicated, would be an informal group. In other words, we're not looking to, start another bureaucracy. We just want the various agencies that are doing these types of things to be able to communicate with each other. This is one of the things that ties to that. And this could be basically in the form of, a resolution or just an acknowledgement that what we're looking to do is, as projects like this come forward, projects designed to create additional water storage, that we support and encourage that and fast track that any way that we can. If it lands within the city of Bonita Springs, we have certain things we can do. If it lands outside the city of Bonita Springs, it might be more limited, but we can at least support it. So again, this is just basically an acknowledgement that we want to do whatever it is that the city can do, sometimes direct, sometimes indirect, to encourage those kinds of water quality programs, water quantity programs.
Okay, council, what's your thoughts on this? Any thoughts?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. It's a flooding issue, just like the first one. If we're not going to hold water somewhere, where is it going to go? So we need to work on this, and Pine Lake Preserve is the perfect opportunity that, that property has the potential to hold a lot of water. So I think this is a good thing to work on.
Well, I am going to point out that number one is the same thing
I know,
as what you
that's
said
what
there.
I'm
Number
saying.
one says
I
that you
said
will
that.
make private property owners give you additional water storage, and we
Exactly.
just said no to that. I just want to point that out. So on number two, you want the government to do that. What would you like to do? Yes, Pete.
I just have a couple of words here that I'd like to change. The first word, it says immediately. I'd like to change that to consider. I'd like to eliminate the word fast track. On line 4, I'd like to eliminate restoring. And then I'd like the statement to end after working group and eliminate and targeted for implementation in approximately 3 months. No hard deadlines until we've gone back, gathered some more, come back. And was there data and science presented to the task force on this point?
Yeah, I believe that most of the presentations they heard from touched on this to one extent or another, yes.
With those words, I am interested in moving forward with this.
And again, just for clarification, when the task force put in wording like implementation approximately 3 months, they were trying to give council, again, not holding it to exact dates, but they were trying to give council an idea of whether or not this was something that could be easily moved into place or would take years to manifest itself. And this is one of the things that they thought that since it was just a policy that you would be establishing, that could be done relatively quickly, is really what that should be interpreted as opposed to one of these multi-year projects. So if you're not comfortable with the 3 months, that's okay. I think, just trying to give you an idea of where they were coming from.
Sure. Oh, no, absolutely. And I consider this meeting of where the rubber meets the road. These are their recommendations, and obviously we have thoughts up here too, so.
Peter, I think that your recommendations are right on spot. I would support number 2 as you've amended it. Are there any other thoughts there? Because I think that these are some things that I think that we need to consider, and we need to be supportive of forming a working group. But so far as targeting implementation in 3 months, that's too much. And so the changes that he suggested, I think are right.
Can you read back those changes?
Sure. The first word says immediately. I would change that to consider. Supporting. I would eliminate the word fast track completely. Then if you want to skip down to line 4, I would eliminate the word restoring. Then if you want to skip down to line 5, 6, 7, end the recommendation after put a period after working group and eliminate the time and targeted for implementation in approximately 3 months. I would eliminate that.
Would you like to make that a motion, please?
Please. I'd like to make that.
Motion.
So moved.
So moved. Is there a second? There's a motion, a second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Councilman Slechta?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Lockhart?
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Okay, number 3. Oh, you got that, John?
Yep.
Got it? Good. Number 3, any large publicly owned parcels within or to the city should be included in discussions. You want to tell us what they were thinking there?
Well, hopefully this is pretty straightforward and self-explanatory. We have publicly owned lands within the city of Bonita Springs. There are some outside the city of Bonita Springs. We're trying to encourage water enhancement plans so that surface water flows make sense, basically. You don't want to see one project going forward in one area, one going forward in another area that don't seem to have any connectivity. You could get some negative impacts if they're not lined up so that they work together well. And all we're doing is indicating that we'd like to see whatever projects that there are out there make sense together as a more holistically. And again, this is something that could be
Good.
put into place relatively quickly.
Okay, this seems like something that we should probably do. It seems like
Absolutely.
something that we probably do anyway, but I think
Right.
it's a good idea. Council, what do you think? It's-
I don't think the time frame is long enough because South Water Water Management District has a responsibility for the Kiel Canal, and I don't know what else, but the I-75 culverts has been a bone of contention for years. I don't think they were ever done. And obviously, I don't think we could, I think it's too short of a time to expect that to be.
I'm not sure that
This
there's
one
a
doesn't
time
have a
frame
time zone
set.
on this one. It says
commence
It just says commence immediately.
And this is about including them in discussions. It's not about
Wrong
completing
one.
them. Yeah.
I apologize.
Yeah, that's all right.
I won't say anything. I was on number 5.
So let it be written, Bill says he's not going to say anything else today.
I'll move to approve.
No, I didn't say that, Ben.
There's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Pete?
I just wanted to eliminate the two words, commenced immediately. Other than that, I'm fine with this.
Commenced immediately.
That's
Blah, blah, blah.
bottom 2 lines there.
Okay.
Strike those and let's move forward. And
Okay.
I'll amend the motion.
You would amend to strike commenced immediately?
Yes.
And, okay, is there a second to that? To
I'll
remove
second.
that? So that his motion is recrafted, so I'm gonna give the person to second it, a chance to second it?
No, he seconded, Bill seconded.
Who seconded? Did Bill second it
Yes, I
to
did.
start with?
Yes, I
Oh,
did.
Well, then, okay. All right, well, that's fine. However we get there.
That's
Okay,
not-
so there's a
Bill-
motion.
Bill
and
did
a
not second that motion.
Okay,
I did.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Okay.
okay.
Whatever.
Well, anyway,
Yes, I'll second the motion.
yes, he'll go ahead and allow that second. Okay, good. We're back on target. Look at us professionals we are.
Number 3.
Okay, so there is a motion and a second to approve number 3 as modified. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Slack?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Longcor?
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Okay, number 4, ensure additional areas of storage and flowways and water treatment areas in Benita Springs DRG areas are integrated to the best extent possible. John?
Okay, words like "to the best extent possible" were very deliberate on the part of the task force. They were not engineers. They recognized that they can't come up with a plan as to how to best integrate all of these various hydrological components. But what they're encouraging is that the policy be that to the best extent possible, we make sure that, as we just looked on a larger scale for lands inside and outside the city, within the DRGR, that we try to make sure that the water flow is as effective as possible. And that's basically what this says.
Anybody got any objections to that one? Yes, Pete?
Green light, go.
You're all for that one? Anybody else? Any comments on this one? Anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
There's motion approved. Pete, would you like to second that?
Sure. No, let Gibson get in on it. Yeah.
All right, Mike, go ahead. Mike seconds that. Any other discussion on number 4? Roll call.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Longcor?
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Councilman Slack?
Aye.
Okay. Number 5, seek agreements with an applicable entity to allow for city maintenance of key flowways if not performed by appropriate lead agencies. Okay.
We've had this situation come up in the past to a limited extent, and it's just trying to codify a position, and that is that sometimes there are either other agencies or private entities that have to control various water structures to maintain the flowway. If they're not done correctly, or if they're not done up to the standards we would like, it's the ability to be able to have the city step in, and obviously there would have to be some cost, benefits worked out. In other words, we wouldn't be taking on the financial responsibility. And this is one of those examples of something that we could start to have staff put together a game plan, how we would do it, bring it back to council for approval if you're happy with it. It also means getting the other entities, obviously, to agree if necessary.
Right. Yeah, any plan, any expenditure would have to be approved by council, so this is a pretty safe bet, would you say? Pretty is, really is.
We have no heartburn from
Probably
Public
something we
Works
were
and
doing,
public-
another thing we were probably doing a little bit of, but probably should do more of. Any complaint, any objection to this one? Yes.
Just a couple of tweaks. I would replace seek agreements with the word advocate with the applicable entity, and then I would add the word for. I would strike to allow for city,
Add the word for to what? Where?
With the applicable entity for key flowways, and strike to allow for city maintenance. I would strike if not performed. Then jumping down to the bottom 3 lines, I would strike the word and then everything moving forward. I would strike and should be targeted for completion in approximately 4 months at no additional cost to the city. I would strike that.
All right, I want you to do me a favor, and can you read that with your corrections in place?
Sure.
So we can see how that
Sure,
flows?
absolutely. Advocate with the applicable entity for maintenance of key flowways by the appropriate lead agency, including but not limited to the Keel Canal, Rosemary Canal, Lightner Creek, and the I-75 culverts in order to keep the flowways open as designed.
Question.
This project should be coordinated by city staff, period.
Question. By taking out the if not performed, it sounds like you're telling us you want us to go out and take over maintenance of everything, no matter if they're doing a good job or not. And I think the point of this from the task force was we should only be involved in trying to get into that relationship if something is not being maintained to a standard that we would have preferred. By taking out the if not performed, it sounds like you're saying go out and take over everything. And I'm not sure that that's what you...
Okay, I mean, I'm not super strong on that point, but that was my original thought.
Yeah, and Peter, I would agree that we would probably should leave if not performed. If it's already being taken, in other words, if this is already being done, hey, I think it's government light to go ahead and allow them to keep doing that. If it's not getting done, well, then that's when we should seek the agreement. So I would support leaving that in, but the rest of your suggestions I don't have any problem with.
Well, is it something we should be getting into as a city, taking over that responsibility? Or, I mean, should we leave it to them and just advocate for them, say, hey, there's a problem here, you guys really should take care of this problem,
And
not
that's
us.
that's always been our first approach, is to talk to whatever entity is involved and see if they would recognize our concerns about maintenance levels. Now, it doesn't happen all that often, but this would give us a different avenue to approach if that's not successful. Let me, an example not related to water quality that might make more sense to folks. If, for example, just throw out an example here, I'm not saying it's the case, but if, for example, Lee County didn't maintain landscape maintenance to a level that we want, we might enter into an agreement that says, look, give us whatever you were paying for that, we're going to take it over, we're going to enhance it because we want to do a little more in terms of maintaining landscape in this particular area. And that's all this is really saying in terms of water flow maintenance.
Okay, well, because just the way it is, it kind of sounds like a cop-out to me for them, saying, well, the city's not happy with what we're doing, they're going to take it over, so let's just kind of, let it go, and that way they take it over.
But again, we would be talking about cost responsibility. We would not be suggesting we do it at our cost.
Well, he struck the part of the sentence, though it says no additional cost to the city, so that says we will take it out. We will pay for it.
Mr. Mayor, if I might.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think realistically, if you're looking at a different standard of performance than what's being already supplied by the entity that's doing it, you're probably realistically looking at additional cost to the city. You just are. Because, yes, they may say we spend X numbers of dollars in a fiscal year to maintain this particular flowway, and the city wants more done, or they want the same thing done, but they want it done more frequently. Well, that probably will have a cost impact for us, even if there's contributions from the entity that used to do it. So I think we need to be cognizant of that, and I think that's true for landscape maintenance as well, that they may contribute as we take it over, but again, with our standards being higher, we need to be concerned that there will be some expense. To what degree, we obviously don't know that.
Well, you still want the flexibility that if somebody's doing a good job of it, that we're not going to take it over for no reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're doing a good job of it, we're not going to take it over, right? So if that's true, you want to leave the language in there.
Well,
if it's not true, take it out, and we're going to take over all of it.
Let's take out and should be targeted for completion in approximately 4 months.
Absolutely. Okay. Got that. And that would be the only change then, right? Yeah.
Advocate.
Right.
Advocate.
As opposed to seek agreements.
Okay, good. So it's advocate, and then take out the targeted completion, and that's the only changes you're suggesting?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, that's a motion?
Well,
I'll
I
second
had a
it.
question.
Oh,
There was a,
I'm sorry,
they
go
did
ahead.
strike at no additional cost to the city. Is that back in or out?
That's back in.
Back in, okay?
I seconded it, Ben.
There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Longcor?
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Councilman Slechta?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye. Okay, number 6, restore to the best extent possible the natural historic Jefferson Flowway as a component of the rehydration of the Pine Lake Preserve.
Now, this is an actual project that we have been talking about staff to staff for some time already, and I think the task force just acknowledged the fact that this would be a good thing if it could be done. Obviously, it would take the cooperation of not only the city, but other partners, and would take some time to do it, and that's all this says.
So, council, what's your pleasure?
Yes, please.
I'd like to,
I'm sorry, wait a
I
minute.
just
Sorry,
said
I'm
yes,
sorry.
please.
Yes, please.
Yes, please. I'm
So-
voting
so-
yes for this as stated.
So you're saying
Yes.
you're going to vote for this, you're not making a motion, are you?
I'll go ahead and make that motion then.
Okay, there's a motion, is there a second?
Second for discussion.
There's a motion, a second, and discussion. Go ahead.
I'd just like to have it read as follows. Consider the restoration of the natural historic Jefferson Flowway as a component of the rehydration of the Pine Lake Preserve, period. And then strike the rest of it.
Okay, so what you're doing is not making it a commitment, you're making it more of a goal.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, there is a motion and a second on the floor. Any other discussion about the motion? Peter doesn't support it as that. He would like to have a change made to it. Janet
I feel
likes
this-
it
I
as
feel
written.
it's a very important
seconder
project.
feels the same way still. Any other discussion on that?
What's the, I guess the science behind it? What's the driving force for doing this, and,
That's
and what,
been-
what would be the cost of it and things like that?
Yeah,
is my problem with
and that's part of it. Another thing about this. This has been a project that has been looked at for a long time and been in consideration for a long time. That we've been working at. That Cullum has been working at real hard. It's a good project. It's just been one in the works. But before anything happens to that, so far as the cost, this doesn't commit you to paying for anything. They have to come back with a project that you have to approve. So all that does is it's a goal. This is a goal. So
And again-
am I correct in that?
And again, we tried, the task force was very deliberate in trying not to give you an engineering requirement, because that's not what they do. And that's why it says restore to the best extent possible, and why it's projected out to be about a 2-year timeline to put this together to bring back a cost. It would be treated like any other public works project, frankly, if it were to get to that point, but it would also include the cooperation of some other players.
Tori, could you come up for a minute? Because I'm afraid you're going to just jump right up here, but if I don't allow you to.
Or Cullum, or.
This has been, prior member of the task force, Tori Polanitza. This has been brought up in a few comments, and I just wanted to clarify something about the water task force. We had a lot of experts come in and give us presentations, and we did a lot of reading of very, very many studies. Most of them were studies that were accepted by the previous city councils, and some of them were just had been presented. All these recommendations were agreed upon based on the science and the studies. These are not based on people's opinions and multiple times repeated public comment. These are recommendations by the experts that we had invited in to give us reports, and this is particularly the Jefferson Flowway, is something that's been studied and looked at and studied. We just haven't been able to get the funding for it. So I don't know how to be any more specific as to when you say, is there the science behind this? Oh yeah, there's plenty of science, and there's plenty of experts over and over agreeing on these points. And that's how the task force came to almost 100% agreement on all of these, because we had the science and the previous studies.
Tori, thank you very much. Yeah, sure, why not?
There's a lot of grumblings back here from task force members as to what you're doing to our
Get
hard
out.
work. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So what I would suggest is right now all you're doing is suggesting to staff to go forward with these recommendations or not. Stop tweaking language. That's not the point. The point is, do we agree with this recommendation or not? Do we want to pursue it? Staff can come back with language to the applicable section of the Land Development Code or the agreements with the various agencies. You just took a lot of teeth out of a couple things that we fought hard for, and it's incredibly frustrating. So, with that said, I'll leave it.
We understand that. Thank you very much.
Appreciate your opinion, but respectfully disagree.
Yeah. Well, I would agree that it's incredibly frustrating. I would agree that, but people are doing their job up here. But thank you so much. Okay.
And just to put it in context, I do need to point out that the language that you're looking at is the result of a lot of give and take and back and forth and very deliberate action. So in that sense, I understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, yeah.
I can appreciate that. And with this discussion, I am up for amending my original statement and have it read, consider the restoration of the natural historic Jefferson Flowway as a component of rehydration of the Pine Lake Preserve. This project should be coordinated by the city in partnership with Lee County, Southwest Florida Management District, and FDOT, period.
Okay, but there has been a motion and a second to approve it as written. Any other discussion?
So we're voting on the original language?
We are voting on the original language.
All right.
Unless, I beg your pardon? Go ahead.
But the staff is coming back with everything for us, and
Oh, yeah.
so like times and dollar amounts could impact.
I
how
think
we
I think
use this.
I think we should look at these things like the language in the comprehensive plan. There are a lot of things that we put in the comprehensive plan. There are goals and objectives and policy things that never happen because you know what? We either don't have the money, we don't have the political will, we don't it's not practical. You have to look at these like this. I mean, and if you approved every one of these, they would come back, and then you at that moment in time, you say that's too expensive, that's impractical, you can just yank them out one at a time, and so either way, and so, but at the same time, you don't like them now, that's fine. Okay, so there is a motion and a second.
And I have a comment.
Yes.
I went to most of the Water Task Force meetings, and I will tell you that they diligently looked at the science. So for us to question the science behind these things, I think it's inappropriate. But if you want to look at the science, go read it. The other point is, I'm not sure what we're doing to this thing when you take that out, Peter. I mean, what are you trying to change? Just tell me.
Well, just trying to change. Obviously, they have time frames on here. Completion of 2 years.
And you don't want it done in 2 years.
Well, that'd be great, but why hamstring it one way or another? What if it can be done in 6 months? What if it takes 5 years?
Yeah, it says should be targeted for completion.
I understand.
Doesn't mean it won't be done sooner.
I get it. There's a lot of language in here. Immediate effect, commence immediately, 3 months, 4 months, 2 years. One man's opinion.
Wait. Easy. Easy. Okay, we all understand the motion, right?
That motion's
And people aren't going to like language sometimes, and people are going to like language sometimes, but we all understand what the intent of this goal is. Any other discussion?
So we're voting as language as original language.
The original language, as written. That is the motion. Roll call.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Longcart?
No.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Councilman Slakta?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
No.
Okay, number 8. In conjunction with the regional...
Seven.
What?
7.
Boy, I must have
Lucky
hated. I
number
must have
7.
hated that one, right?
7.
Sorry about that. I can't fool anybody anymore. 7.
This
7 is
piggybacks on
actually-
6, so
Yeah, I was going to say, this actually
make
mirrors
the motion.
6 just for a little area, just a little further south and a little further east.
Yep.
Motion?
I'll make that motion,
Second.
please, as stated.
Wow, where did I lose control?
Oh,
That was
sorry.
14 years ago, wasn't it?
I'm fine.
Okay, so I guess there has been a motion.
I'm sorry.
Council's running their own meeting there.
I
See ya,
apologize.
I'm out. Sorry. God, nobody thinks nothing's funny anymore. Okay, so there's a motion and a second to adopt number 7. Any discussion?
Well, I mean, I have some word changes, but I guess we're voting as a whole, so.
Okay.
For the moment.
All right.
I have a question. Where's the old riverbed? I mean, I've been out there and.
I don't know. That's probably something they'd have to determine as part of this.
Yeah, I just don't know that.
Here you go.
Or right now.
If you don't mind, I can tell you, Matt Feeney for the record. The old riverbed at Cullum's Bonita Trail, the very first bridge that you cross.
Oh,
If
okay.
you look east and west, it's the old riverbed. It runs
It
right
fills
behind
in
those
rainy
homes.
season.
That's further west and east. I was out there in Fagan with Tori. Okay, I'll stop.
You can
And,
see it
and
pretty
again,
easily.
and again, I have to point out the careful language here is to the best extent possible, which may mean it's impossible. Okay, so it may well. Yes. Hi.
Nicole Johnson for the record, and I just wanted to point out, I think the task force was at first a bit uncomfortable trying to figure out a time frame. You know, we thought we really have no idea, but council wanted us to do the best that we could for the time frame. So I agree, these are very general, but these were our best estimates. And also, I think it was really important, we did want to make sure that our recommendations were not wishy-washy. We restore. They were actionable. We wanted action taken. And I know I'm personally a little concerned if we retreat back on consider or that kind of language, it just doesn't feel as actionable. So as you're looking at the language, I just ask that you keep that in mind.
Okay, thank you. And I, on both sides of the podium here, I would caution everyone that I wouldn't get too hung up about language one way or the other, because it's always going to be under consideration. Even if we adopt this as restore, until it's brought forward, it's going to be reconsidered again. And when it goes to bid, it's going to be reconsidered again. That's just the way things go. So don't get too hung up about it. It's going to be okay. Fred.
Yeah, I'd like to just add a couple points. Number one, that I think Scott did not accurately portray that all of us have the same opinion that he did on certain things. Nicole, myself, I'm positive that David Gallagher all had the opinion, based on what Kevin Irwin said, that you don't do any of these proposed projects until the ground proofing and the modeling was done. That would include some of these rehydration projects because, for example, that Pine Lake or whatever you call it, that's got water on it a lot in the rainy season. So if it does, you have to be very careful about putting more water into a place that has water. Hidden Cypress, the same thing. So I just want to make sure that you understand. Some of these words that you're talking about are important. Thank you.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone here is under the impression that you guys agreed on everything, so I don't think there's any danger there. And again, there's a motion and a second on the table for adoption of the language to send off, as we're doing here on number 7. Any other conversation? Roll call.
Councilman Longcart?
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Councilman Slakta?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
No.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Okay, now we're on number 8, right?
Right.
We're just flying through these things.
Number 8 is basically a recommendation that the City of Bonita Springs try to begin a conversation, basically, with other entities about work under I-75. We understand that this is not something that the city would be taking on as our project at our expense, but it is a recommendation that they encourage the appropriate entities to construct those Spring Creek culverts.
Okay, and this again is another project that we have worked on and off on for a long time. The one that most people, well, I won't even say that. One that some people consider important. Yes.
Just like to change the word encourage to investigate, and strike and should be targeted for initiation immediately and for completion in approximately 5 years.
Okay. I fail to see the difference, but then again, that's your desire there. Council, what's your pleasure?
I'll make a motion to that effect.
You make a motion to that effect, and with the changed language to change encourage to investigate.
And then strike and should be targeted for initiation and immediately.
Okay, but I have to point out that what you're doing is investigating the appropriate entities.
That, would you, okay?
So are we going to investigate the entities? Is that what you're wanting
Are
us
they
to do?
clearly defined?
What?
What?
Aren't we supposed to, we wanted to encourage the appropriate entities to do something. Instead, you said to investigate the appropriate entities. Investigate the appropriate.
I'm fine with leaving that word as is.
To leave encourage in?
And then just strike and should be targeted for initiation immediately and for
I'm
completion in approximately 5 years.
So leave encourage in.
Yeah, we can leave, and then we're down to the bottom 3 lines there.
So the bottom 3 lines, then it's, you just don't want to put a time limitation on it.
Correct. And we can leave at no additional cost to the city.
Okay, so that's Peter's motion. And is there a second?
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Yes.
I'm just, this is another one of those projects that, it's been in the pipeline and trying to figure out how to make it work for so long. Spring Creek has such a potential to carry so much water that it should be something that I believe that should be implemented as soon as we can do it. And I'm disappointed when we start taking the teeth out of something like this that's so important. So, I'll vote for it just to move it forward, but I'm just disappointed in that. I really think that some of these projects are so needed, and they're so needed now.
Well,
Okay. Yes.
I won't vote for it in this state. I think it reduces the impact of it.
Okay. And any other comment? Yeah, Peter, I appreciate your support of this, but I think that these are things that we need to leave some of these in here so far as for the completion dates. I think that they're laudable goals. So anyway, I won't be supporting this as made. But anyway, yes.
Change my mind.
Could we change it to still encouraging them to look at doing this and then initiating it as soon as possible? I think you just want to take the time frames out of it so they can do it sooner than later, or
Yeah.
Well, I think that
because it has the initiation immediately.
Yeah.
So I mean that
to start it.
covered
Right.
starting it sooner.
Yeah, should be targeted for initiation immediately, which means starting it right now, and for completion in approximately 5 years. I think they were just taking a stab at thinking, well, how long is a reasonable time to set a goal on this, but you know what? If it gets done in 1 year, it ends in 1 year. So I don't think that they're saying it's got to take 5 years. So anyway, there is still a motion and a second to eliminate the which part of it? The even targeted for initiation immediately and for completion. That's what your motion takes out?
In approximately 5 years, correct, and leave at no additional cost to the city.
Yeah, but you are taking out for initiation immediately. Okay.
Can the public speak on any of these issues?
Well,
The task force is speaking, if someone felt strongly according to one of them.
what we're trying to do is to call upon the members of the task force and some of the expert testimony. But I appreciate your question, Ed. But if we get to a particular place at the end of the meeting there, I think that you should write your comments down and let us know about this, because again, once we adopt these today, it's not like we're going to carve them on the outside of the building outside. Okay. Okay. I understand. But hold on. We'll get to you. Okay. So anyway, there is still a motion and a second to that effect. I personally can't support it because I think that it needs to be initiated immediately, but we can vote on it if everybody done talking about it. Roll call.
Councilman McIntosh?
Nope.
Councilwoman Martin?
No.
Councilman Slakta?
No.
Mayor Nelson?
No.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Longcor?
Aye.
Okay, is there another motion? The motion fails. Is there another motion?
I'll make the motion to leave it as standard with
There's a
with
motion
text
to adopt it
written.
as written.
As written.
And second.
And there's a second. Any other discussion? Okay, roll call.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Councilman Slakta?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
No.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Longcart?
No.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Okay, that carries number 9, right? Okay, I gotta check here. Go ahead, John. Little overall.
Yeah, actually, this is one that I might ask Phil Flood to come up and talk about because they actually did have a little bit of concerns about this. And I don't want to put words in his mouth, but my understanding is that the 2009 watershed update plan may not all the projects identified in there may not actually be doable and or desirable. So Phil, I don't know if you over here want to weigh in a little bit more on that, but this is one that may present some issues.
Actually, I'm trying to reread it right now. I think, John, my concern was what's referenced right here is the watershed plan update. What was adopted was specific to looking at Halfway Creek and Spring Creek and not moving water south. There was some study that was done, but we never did move forward with adoption of some moving some more water. Looking beyond Halfway Creek and Spring Creek, I think it's laudable to be taking a look at moving some water south. That was the recommendations in the original watershed plan, South Lee County watershed plan. My biggest concern here is that in order to do that, we'll require some additional modeling and some additional work, looking at some studies. Not something that could be done right away. So,
how about we say monitor encourages the improvement of flowways that affect the Bonita Springs, City of Bonita Springs watershed, and leave out the reference to the 2009 watershed update. Does that get us to where we need to be anyway? I mean, if that's what you're worried about, is that what we're worried about or no?
it was.
I mean, monitor just means.
Yep.
Watch what happens.
Yeah.
Right? Don't see any danger in that. Encourage, not a bad word, right? Is there anything I'm missing here that's bad about this? Okay.
No, I was just looking from John for some clarification of the water plan update.
John,
was in reference to on that.
What do you think? If there's something about the 2009 water, I mean,
Yeah, and again,
should we be encouraging that improvement of flowways throughout our watershed?
making this a bit more generic and not limiting it to the 2009 watershed study plan update, I think would still be appropriate.
Okay. And if somebody got any objection to that, needs to pop up here real quick.
I was just going to say, and for the record, I just want to show you, Mayor, I said okay on this one. See it with
Ah!
a circle on it?
Curses.
No changes.
Okay. All right. Council, I'm up to you. Who wants to make a motion on this?
I'll make
and what
a
would you like
motion.
to do? What would you like to mention as
Amended.
as amended from, okay, taking out the reference to the 2009 watershed and referencing the Bonita, that affect the Bonita Springs flowways.
That's correct.
Watershed.
That's the only thing that's taken out, Mayor.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, there's a motion and a second. Everybody understand the motion?
Was there a second?
We all good? Roll call.
Second.
Okay,
Yes,
good.
just
Roll
in
call.
ca- Just in case.
Just in case. Roll call.
Councilman Slakta?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Longcart?
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
And I can hear the gnashing of teeth out there, but don't worry, it'll be all right. Number 10.
So the conversation here had to do with if and when there is significant roadway improvements, what we can do to encourage the use of the right-of-way to act as, I guess, a quasi-filter marsh. There are a couple of things that did concern us about this. One is whether or not the intent of this was to be limited to the DRGR area, because it frankly would present some significant problems, I think, for Public Works if it was citywide. And the second has to do with when people think of filter marshes, it's typically a much broader type of structure of conveyance than what we're thinking about here. It's called a linear filter marsh, but it's really a very limited kind of structure that they're talking about in terms of containing some water on the sides of roads. So I think with that clarification, it's probably something that Public Works would not have a whole lot of heartburn about. But the limitation would be that what we're talking about is within the DRGR, and filter marsh being, in this case, a very limited structure that we're talking about.
Well, I want to point out there's a key word in here too.
Right.
Consider.
Yep.
So, just
And again,
want to point that out.
that was deliberate on the part of the task force. They weren't requiring, they weren't making something mandatory.
Well, with that in mind, I just want to point that out because I want to point out we could say consider a trip to Mars as well. But see, we would all go, what? You're not going to go to Mars? You're right, because we're just going to consider. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, Pete.
Oh,
you're not gonna mic.
I just had a question. Do we want to limit it to the south? That was my only question on this. Do we want to limit it to just the south? Well, let's see. Line 1, 2, 3.
Yes, slow
4.
conveyance of water to the south. I would agree
Yes.
that you probably don't want to say that.
Yeah, why wouldn't we? That was my point too, was
Yeah.
why only to the
If
south?
the,
Why
if the
wouldn't it be
actual
any-
conveyance of the water was to the west,
Yes.
North, south, east, west, northeast, southwest.
Listen, it all goes west eventually, even a trickle.
That was my only question on this.
So then
Do we want to limit it to the
two
south?
changes that I'm hearing is to eliminate the words to the south, and I would preface it that within the DRGR, when any significant roadway.
If we're considering it, though, why wouldn't we just make it citywide then? Because we're still only considering it.
That's
So, I
okay.
mean, it'd be on every project.
And in most cases, outside the DRGR might not be practical.
well, this doesn't limit it to the DRGR, this suggestion, right?
But again, what I was trying to convey was some of the concerns expressed by Public Works about if this was supposed to be citywide as opposed to within the DRGR, as a practical matter, it's not going to be something that's going to be viable in most parts of the city.
Then when we consider that, they'll tell us that, won't they?
And that's what I'm saying, as long as it's understood that outside of the
Alright.
DRGR, it's probably not going to be
Yeah,
practical.
I'd be okay with them saying, yeah, that's not a good idea. Okay, yeah.
Is there more discussion? I was just going to say, I'd like to make a motion to strike 3 words, to the south.
South.
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Is that a motion to that effect?
So moved to that
The
effect.
motion, is there a second?
Second.
And we're gonna give the second to Bill because he kind of just did one of these. Chime in there, Bill.
You're welcome.
Yeah, get it. Okay. Any discussion?
Yes, Mayor, I'm getting quite concerned. We heard Scott and we heard Nicole talk about changing the verbiage in each one of these, and apparently they've studied this thing pretty well, and I'm really having the difficulty with us making these changes now.
I understand. Yeah. Okay. And let me invite Scott. Come on up here for a second. I'm gonna pick your brain since you were the chairman of this fine committee that's wearing your teeth out there.
No, that's
Why did you say to the south?
Frankly, I have no idea. I don't remember.
So
This
do
one
you
causes me a
in
little
general-
concern. Actually, I bet Nicole has. You remember?
Come on.
Come on up.
Come on up.
Yeah, this change gave me no concern.
Oh.
I actually think it's a good one, actually.
Well, there you have it.
But anyway, because it might go north.
Go ahead.
I
Go
think
ahead.
it is a good point. I think that we had in mind particularly Bonita Grande. It just runs straight down Bonita Grande south into the Imperial River, and I think that was on all of our minds. I was upset because it also runs down Terry Street like a river. So any direction you want to do, it's fine with us, I'm sure.
Well, there you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But thank you for protecting our language.
Okay.
But yeah,
Well,
this one I think is
from
okay.
now on, if any council member thinks that this may be upsetting we'll invite him to the table. How about that?
Sounds
Come
good.
on up. All right. Okay. There's a motion, a second, as amended. Is there any other comment? Roll call.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Councilman Slafky?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Longcor?
Aye.
Okay, John. The next one is 11, which is reference to the crew acquisition boundaries. Is that true?
And basically, this is just a policy. It could be done, for example, by a resolution of the city council, just encouraging those other folks to keep buying those lots.
It's encourage is the key word here. Is that correct?
Right.
All right.
Do we have a definition or a hard, on outlots?
I'm not.
Well, I mean, outlots, I think everybody has a general idea on the second line. Just curious.
Yeah, I mean, I think what the intent was is that within the crew boundaries, there are certain properties that still aren't under public domain. So the idea is to encourage them to go out and buy those various pieces that are still scattered around.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I just,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Ben.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I would make a motion to strike and should be implemented in 3 months.
Okay. And your reasoning for that is that you don't want to see there to be a
Well,
time.
I think you see a consistent theme with me, so that, right, it's just, you look, I mean, these are, we've heard, they're arbitrary suggestions for timeframes, so I don't think we should be bound and shackled by these arbitrary timeframes.
Well, and I have to tell you, this is one that you could do today. As a matter of fact, we're doing it right now.
Yeah.
If you're talking about encouraging Southwest Florida water management, he's sitting right there. And Lee County, we do that all the time at Crew to encourage these acquisitions. There's no reason that you have to wait 3 months, but I think that they were just giving you another outside time. Anyway, the motion, are you making a motion?
Making a motion
The
to
motion
just
is
strike.
to
Right.
do this and just not to put the implemented in 3 months at no cost to the city. You want to leave
Leave at no cost to the city.
I thought so. There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Steve, would you like to invite anybody from the task force committee like to talk about whether or not to leave the 3 months? Is that going to give you all heartburn? No?
Nope.
Nope. A lot of shaking heads. Good. There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Councilman Slakta?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Longcor?
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
All right. We're a third of the way done. Number 12.
And this is, again, one that you've already heard from Phil Flood that the Water Management District does have some concerns about. This is the idea that you would take the Kiel Canal and see if it could be redesigned, reconfigured to hold more water during the dry season. Well, for the dry season. Again, I think the intent was to merely encourage them to investigate the possibility. It wasn't say, go do this. I don't see any harm in going ahead with that, but understand that the idea of that kind of a project with the Kiel Canal does seem to run contrary to some of the other recommendations about natural rehydration and returning things to the natural flowway. So, again, I don't think there's any particular harm because it doesn't say thou shalt do this. It's just to encourage them to investigate it. But understand that there could be some problems in going forward with that particular kind of project.
Yeah, I agree. Encourage to investigate the possibility could consist of us just saying this, and that would be the rest of. Oh, there it goes. That could be the end of that. Council, are you okay with adopting this?
Yep.
I see this as a no harm, no foul.
Motion to approve.
There's a motion to approve,
Steve
and
already
there's
did.
a
I'm sorry.
second right there.
I'm the second.
Okay. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Councilman Slakta?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Longcor?
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Okay, number 13. Lucky 13. The Lower Tamiami Aquifer and DRGR area.
Yeah, and frankly, this is one that you may want to ask some of the task force members for some of their input. I have some problems with the final wording on this on twofold. One is because I'm not really sure I see a recommendation in it. It's more of a statement. And the second thing is that I'm concerned that it may conflict to a certain extent with some of the data that's being pulled together by BSU about where and how recharge happens. So again, not sure if you want to get some more input from the task force members about what their intent was here, but does present some problems, at least from staff's perspective.
Okay, first, Council, do you have any comments before we invite other people to the party here?
I mean, I had a few words,
It's
tweaking
just-
of the words.
It's just
but-
wordsmithing that you were going to do? Okay.
Well, wordsmith and then some, a little bit. But
Scott or anybody else, do you have any comments when it regards to this? I have a couple.
And I think Fred is probably the most appropriate person. I think he was pretty passionate about getting this kind of on the record or part of our recommendations, just an acknowledgement that there's some recharge of our water resources, our aquifers, both vertically and laterally. That's kind of a theme we heard. The extent of which is up for debate. We're not telling you what the extent of that recharge is, and so I think we just wanted to put on the record or let everybody know that the aquifers are important and recharge should be considered in making decisions. So, and I don't know if Fred wants to elaborate on that.
Fred?
Very quickly, that one of the things that the city did pay for was a study that Greg Rawle, who is an expert in this, And he did say in writing, and he also said it in front of us, that the DRGR did make a significant contribution to recharging the aquifer. I'm more interested in the vertical part. To me, that's what recharge is, as opposed to the lateral movement, because if upstream from the direction the aquifer moves underground, if they do something that screws it up there, we still want to have a recharging in the DRGR, the Greater Bonita Springs area. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dennis?
I think the point of this is being the meat of this is in the last is not the significant or insignificant. And I'll say, as far as that term, there is nothing that legally or technically defines what is significant or not in that case. But the issue is, we all agreed that the water management practices should raise the current groundwater levels to encourage, whether it's significant or not. We're recommending that the groundwater levels should be raised to encourage additional infiltration and recharge. So that's the bigger issue, is practices that would increase stormwater storage that in turn provides additional recharge and infiltration in the groundwater.
Okay, good. All right, council. Well, I have a bit of a problem with the finding of fact part of it. I agree that, but I would say that this is true everywhere in Florida, not just the DRGR. That groundwater recharge is important. That's why we have retention areas, and that's why everywhere, not just the DRGR. But I do agree with the conclusion on how to deal with the importance of groundwater recharge, which is through improved water management practices that maintain and raise the current groundwater levels. I think that's important. So I've got no problem with the way it's written. Sure, come on up here.
That was also the point of the first one, of increasing from 1.5 inches. I know. The retention and detention was to increase the surface water. Okay.
Yep. Good point. Good point. And, okay, Council, what's your pleasure on this one?
I'd like to make a few changes, if possible, make a motion. Line 1, 2, 3, 4, replace the word above with through. Line 6, 7, after the word measures, add not involving development. And then at the very end, just add and acquisition of lands to protect the aquifer.
Okay, that's your motion?
So moved. I can repeat it again.
Yeah, so.
Okay, sure. Let's see, line 1, 2, 3. On line 4, strike the word above and replace it with the word through. Line 6, 7, after the word measures, add not involving development, and then skip all the way to the very end, water storage and detention and acquisition of lands to protect the aquifer.
I would say that the not involving development just doesn't make any sense. You think that's the whole point. If somebody does something out there, even the things that they're illegally able to do now.
If that's redundant,
Yeah, I wouldn't be supportive of putting that in. I don't think that has anything to do with it. I'm not sure what the significance of putting through as opposed to above is, but.
Could I have a task force member please respond to that?
Or two.
I think the difference between above and through is fairly significant. The whole point of the confining layer is it confines the aquifer from the surface water. It separates them.
To keep it from going
Correct.
through.
So the whole point of the confining layer is water does not go through the confining layer. So I think that's, if that was your question.
I can't let that go unchallenged. The city's funded consultant, Greg Rawl, said that there is a significant amount of leakage through the marl or this confining layer. Now, it's debatable what the word significant means, but it means it does contribute a good amount. Now, what it is, I don't know, but that's what the argument is. And that's not political, which I was told it was. Thank you.
Well, there you have it. Okay, so you have a motion on the table there, and is there and a second? Is there any other discussion about this? I quite frankly am content to leave it the way it actually reads there, and we'll vote that way. But that's fine. We'll go with the consensus of that. Any other discussion?
So just the above or through kind of, yeah, I don't see a huge change. I mean, I understand the water's going through, but I mean, as far as the intent, I don't, of the whole thing, but we're basically adding that we would like to see acquisition of lands to protect the aquifer. That's what we're basically adding to this?
If I can interrupt, it's important that you consider existing development rights that are out there. So I think you might want to, instead of saying development, just say existing development or something like that. You don't want to say no development because they got the rights to develop now.
Yeah, again, I'm content with the way.
Yeah, like I said, if that was
13.
redundant, so I,
13.
backed off of that. That's not a
Stay the
problem.
way
Yeah.
it is.
I don't think it's redundant. I think it changes it.
Yeah. Okay, we know what the motion is. Ready? Roll call.
Mayor Nelson,
No.
Councilman Simmons.
Aye.
Councilman Gibson.
Aye.
Councilman Longcart.
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh.
Nope.
Councilwoman Martin.
No.
Councilman Slakta.
No.
Is there a motion
I'll
for
make a
number
motion
13?
to approve this as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve as written. Any other conversation? Any other? No? No? Roll call.
Councilman Simmons.
No.
Councilman Gibson.
Aye.
Councilman Longcart.
No.
Councilman McIntosh.
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin.
Aye.
Councilman
Aye.
Slakta. Mayor Nelson.
All right. Okay, number 14. City of Bonita Springs should actively pursue all funding options. Period.
14. Period.
Sorry,
Right.
it was for you, Ron. Bam.
14 is followed
Not
by.
laughing. Go ahead.
14 is followed by a few pages of examples of the kinds of things that are out there. And obviously, we don't have any problem with the idea of going out and looking for other funding sources. I do want to make clear, though, and I don't know if it needs to be reflected in a language change or not, but two things. One, that could be problematic from staff's point of view. We would be more comfortable if it said that we should attempt to actively pursue. In other words, we don't want this to be seen by anybody as a until you look at all of these, you can't do anything type things, because frankly, we do get in trouble sometimes when we identify a funding grant source and then try to squeeze a project into it as opposed to the other way around. What we are more comfortable doing is identifying the project, the need, and then seeing if there's a funding source that matches that. So again, as long as the understanding is that looking at additional funding sources is not a prerequisite in the sense that not all of these things have to be checked off as we looked at, 1 through whatever it is. We obviously don't have any problem with the concept of looking for additional funding sources. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So are you saying to attempt to?
I'm just saying from my own, from a strictly staff perspective, if it said something about we should attempt to actively pursue all of those funding sources, that gives us a little more comfort that nobody is going to look at us and say, you can't go ahead and do project Y until you indicate that you have checked off actively every one of these things.
Yeah, and I've got a. I'm sorry, I have alternate language here. I think saying all funding options. That's. I don't. I would say should actively pursue a variety of funding options in order to implement current. I'm okay with that.
Are you wordsmithing?
I am.
All right, I love it.
But I think that all.
And that would
all
also,
means all.
That would also be consistent with staff's concerns if it was changed to pursue a variety of funding options.
So I would make a motion to that effect. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a second. Take your choice. Any other discussion? Do members out there, do you have any problem with that? No? Okay. All right. Ron, you'll get your chance there after a while. Thank you. Okay, there's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Councilman Gibson.
Aye.
Councilman Longcart.
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh.
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin.
Aye.
Councilman Slakta.
Aye.
Mayor Nelson.
Aye.
Councilman Simmons.
Aye.
Okay, number 15.
15 is the request that we go out for an RFP for
professional services to help us with additional water monitoring collection of data. And this is something that grew out of the presentation and the work done by Kevin Irwin. Staff doesn't have a problem with this in terms of being able to go out and do it if council thinks that it's a worthwhile expenditure, and obviously, like any other RFP, we'd be bringing it back to you in terms of approving the scope and going out and before we approved any contracts. The one thing I do need to touch on, though, which, because it has come up in conversation from some of the members of the public at the beginning, is that it was not the consensus of the task force that the idea that additional water monitoring be done before council could consider doing anything else in the DRGR. If that were the case, I think it would be reflected in the recommendations, and you don't see that in the recommendations. So again, as long as the understanding is that, yeah, supplemental information to whatever is already out there being collected is not a bad thing, and we would obviously, if the dollars work out so that you're comfortable with it, would have no problem with collecting additional data. I just don't want the misunderstanding to be that this is seen as a prerequisite to council taking any other action, because I don't think that was the consensus of the task force. Again, if it had been, I think you would have seen that as a recommendation.
Okay, council, comments on this? Yes.
John, previously someone mentioned about the number of monitoring stations, and is it out of line, 50?
I really don't want to get into the specifics of how it would be done, but we do indicate that the monitoring plan, we would set out the scope and then find out what kind of results we got back in. I would feel more comfortable leaving that to the engineers to tell us what's going to get us the best data.
Okay, I'm going to chime in here. I'm not in favor of voting for this one, mainly because I don't see a question attached. Usually, when you want to know something in particular, you have a question, so you want to find out through data analysis. I think that, and without going too deeply into it, I think that this thing has been, there is no piece of property on the planet that has been studied as much as this piece of property. I feel very confident in that statement. So I won't be, until there's an underlying question to be answered that we can answer. I'm not in favor of this one, but go ahead, council. What's your pleasure?
I mean, I had a few edits. Steve, do you want to?
Well, I was going to ask Scott to come up and answer that question. Is there a question? The reason I asked him to come up, I think I'm not trying to just say I understood all the water task force meetings, but there was a concern about helping the public be confident in what was going on, and I felt like this might have been. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sure, go ahead.
I don't have a microphone.
Yeah.
But anyway,
audio problems.
You know the point.
Maybe that's good.
It's not a bad thing, right?
Really?
Yeah.
Scott's up there. Shut it off.
Yeah, exactly. I know the monitoring has been a much discussed issue. I've got my personal opinions, but I think the general consensus is information in and of itself is not bad. The extent of how much information we may need is debatable and has been debated pretty significantly. I don't, whether we go out for a request for a proposal or maybe you direct staff to say, hey, synthesize what we have, see if there's gaps in that information, and then come back to the extent we need to fill in those gaps. Because, we talked about at the task force, having some information about how much water is going down Bonita Grand or East Terry, because as Tori mentioned, at some points it's a river flowing and it's literally has it's class 3 rapids. It's significant, and to actually measure that and determine how much, and then that could allow you to then make determinations as to, hey, maybe we need to send the water somewhere else because there's too much going there and not enough going somewhere else. So we're not experts. The folks on the task force, we've heard from a lot of experts. I'm not entirely sure we understand the extent of any additional monitoring we may need. That's my personal opinion.
Thank you.
Okay, council.
Answer your question?
Yep. Any other questions for Scott or anyone else?
Yeah, I just want to remind you all, Nicole Johnson today said the very thing that's being debated. We need to do the ground proofing, the water monitoring, the modeling before projects are moved forward, even the ones on public property. I said that. David Gallagher said that, and I believe if you would ask Colum, he would say the same thing. Now, there were a lot of things that we voted for that were basically, I voted for something that is a poor joke. 10% improvement of 1.5-inch water storage, 1/8 of an inch. I proposed to go to 2.5 for anything in the real wet areas. So would I vote no on a 10%? No. So I just want to make that clear. Thank you.
John, and then come on, Tori, while John's
Yeah,
talking.
again, Fred indicates that Nicole said something. She did. She gave the position of the Conservancy. And again, what I was trying to differentiate was what the task force, as a task force, came up with in terms of recommendations. And despite, what people's positions might be individually, I was trying to give the council a clearer reflection as I could of what recommendations came from the task force, what consensus they came to, and that was not one of the consensus that they came to. So
that's all I was going to say was there was probably the least amount of consensus on this point. One of the points that I opposed in it, other than so many different, 50 of them's a lot, but also most of this property in the DRGR is privately owned, which is not like in the county DRGR. And so once you get that data and all this monitoring, how are you going to implement your desires on people's individual property? So I thought that it was a bit overkill for someone. Plus, I wouldn't personally say, oh yeah, come put a monitor on my land. I mean, you would have to have people volunteer their property to be monitored, and then what are you going to do with that information? So to me, it just didn't seem like a cost-effective thing other than the monitoring we're already doing as a city.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Oh, I know.
Just very briefly, to answer your question of what was the task force getting to in this, what would be the benefit and what would be the next step with this monitoring. I can't speak for the other task force members, but I can say that I voted for this because I believe that there are some gaps in the monitoring data, and this monitoring subsurface water level data is going to be very important in the modeling process, which is the next step. So the Conservancy does see this as an important part of getting to that finish line of really understanding what's going on out there, and when you implement water restoration projects, those sorts of things, we do see it as important. And if there already exists the data, then certainly that needs to be brought forward, and the monitoring can be supplemental where there are gaps in the data.
Okay, thank you. And my point being is that, we've just talked about, I don't know how many different kinds of water monitoring there is, but there's a lot. Somebody talked about how much water is going down the ditch. She just said monitor subsurface levels. You can monitor for nitrogen, phosphorus. You can do all kinds of water monitoring. And at the end of the day, none of that's mentioned here. It just says water monitoring. All right, go ahead.
Well, I think this information ties into water quantity issue number 19.
Right.
For the decision-making model.
Right.
And I view the water quantity 15 is basically the data source that one would use to create the decision-making model.
Right.
And it doesn't do anything. It does us good having this data available to make better decisions rather than trying to ignore it.
Right.
Not utilize it.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Hold on. Oh, yeah. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Steve. And while he's walking up.
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm going to go back to an original statement I made. Whatever decisions comes out of this Water Task Force Committee, the constituents, the residents, the citizens here have to be comfortable that we did it right. And, if we're going on with things as we do this simultaneously, that's fine. But I do want to if there are gaps in the monitoring, and I've read all the reports, if it takes another set of monitoring to make the task force feel like they've done the job and we've done it right, then I would support it. I don't like particularly the way we're doing it, but I like the concept better than what I might have earlier.
Yeah, good, thank you, I understand. Yeah, Janet?
Thank you. I was saying all along in my notes that I was taking is that obviously the council does not want to pay for any duplication of monitoring and information we already have, but following along with the task force, as they went through here, it was very evident that there were gaps, and there were some other places that we still needed that information to move forward with future projects and just where we are. And so I think that I will support this, and we'll come to some type of, growing pains with how this will play out. Do I think 50 monitoring stations? I think that's excessive. But I think we'll figure out where those gaps are. I think we know where they are, and we need to do that. But obviously, we need to maintain the system that we have because it's working.
Okay, Dennis?
Just real quick, the top part of that recommendation is I think is fine. The supplemental monitoring, you heard the professional engineers talk about, it's good data, good to have more data. You heard your staff as well as them say it's not a prerequisite to do modeling and make decisions. The genesis of some of the controversy of this recommendation was that it was originally came from the Irwin recommendation to do 50 stations not on 5,300 acres DRGR land, but on 2,500 acres of the 5,300. Less than half of the area was going to be monitored with 50 stations, and that half happened to be the area that he said should be restored, including 1,000 acres of private lands to be put back to 1953 conditions. So I just say that's the genesis of why there was some controversy on this, and it came back to the study that Mr. Irwin did about recommendations for restoring to 1953 conditions. Thank you.
Okay. Well, here's what I would suggest. I'll come right to it. What I would suggest, I don't have any problem with the first paragraph as long as it is that City Council would be requesting that their staff develop a request for proposals and a scope relative to additional water quality monitoring. I have no problem with that, because then we can have additional input on what it should be studied, where it should be studied, that type of thing. But then getting into, I'm not in favor of getting into all the specifics that follow underneath that. So instructing staff to develop a scope of services and going out for that request for proposals for additional water monitoring, I got no problem with that. That way we can talk about the scope of services, we can discuss it with all of you, and we can figure out what it is what we want to know. I got no problem with that, but the way it is, I can't vote for it. Any discussion?
I just want, in the second paragraph, the word natural, I think it would be better to, and I'll make a motion to replace that with undeveloped.
Let's see, in the second paragraph, you said restoration, rehydration.
Yeah, second to last word.
Rehydration and restoration of existing
natural areas. I'd rather have it read existing undeveloped areas.
How about undisturbed? Because you'll have areas out there that are used for agriculture that have been disturbed, that aren't natural, but are not developed, in my opinion. That's just a suggestion.
Sure.
I understand what you're trying to get at.
Yeah.
There's a lot of property out in the DRGR that's been disturbed.
Right.
It's not natural. It's not developed, but it's
right.
disturbed.
Right.
But that, okay, well.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I don't know what the significance is of.
That's you're walking into something, because
I'm sorry, you can't talk while the chairman is talking, but thank you very much. Okay. I don't see the significance in having the debate about that particular language, mainly because, I think that remains to be seen. I mean, really, debating it whether it's natural or whether it's unplowed or whatever. I think that if you're going to do 50 of them, you're going to hit them all. But anyway, go ahead, Fred. Now go ahead, carry on.
No, I beg your pardon for interrupting.
That's all right.
No, I think you don't want to limit yourself to just undisturbed land, because there may be some land that has been farmed. In fact, farmland, according to Kevin Irwin, is one of the easiest, most restorable lands. So that's my only comment. Thank you.
Okay. So, council, what's your pleasure? Is there a motion?
I'm going to make a motion just to change the word natural to undeveloped.
And then adopt the rest of this as is?
Yes.
I'll
Okay,
second it.
there's a motion and a second. I won't be voting for the motion, not because I don't want any water monitoring, but I think that we should develop an actual scope of services that is different than what is listed here, and have the flexibility to do so. Anyway, that's it. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Longcart?
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh?
Nope.
Councilwoman Martin?
Nope.
Councilman Slakta?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
No.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, number 16. Implement a requirement that new developments, post-development, stormwater. What do you got there?
Actually, I think, if I remember right, Phil, 16 and 17, I think Phil Flood and I had some discussions about this. I don't remember any particular concerns about it. As a matter of fact, I think, without paraphrasing Phil, that he indicated that this is already pretty much in place.
You think that these regulations are pretty much in place? These two?
Phil and John, am I right about that?
So these are basically redundant, so we don't need to look at them, right? Is that it?
16
All
and
right, I see a
17.
lot, let it be known that there are a lot of nodding heads out there.
Their heads, right? So I just
Okay, so 16 and 17, don't need to take any action on that.
Strike them or take no action?
We don't have to take any action because it's like saying there is air. Okay? So, number 18. Implement a policy that failure to clear a flowway or flood control structure is a violation subject to enforcement.
absolutely no concern about council approving this. As a matter of fact, this is already in the works. This is part of the stormwater ordinance that Audrey has been working on with Public Works, and it's been coming to you for the last couple of weeks. Basically allows us to step in again where a private entity is not doing their job correctly and be able to use it as another enforcement tool.
Oh, wait, you mean this is only going to apply to private entities?
I believe so.
Oh,
The way
that's,
they've got it written.
that's rather convenient. When we make the rules, we don't find ourselves, do we? Darn it.
Talk to your lawyer about that.
Talk to my lawyer about that. Rather ironic.
In place
Rather
already.
ironic.
Do we need to have a motion on it too?
Yeah, this isn't in place already, right?
No, but it's actively going through the
Yeah,
process.
we just had it at the last meeting. We voted
Yep.
on the
Right.
first
Of
step
course
of it.
already, so
Yep.
we don't need to adopt
No.
this one? We can just kind of, all right. Hey, yeah, if you would like to, we can go ahead and reiterate that. If you would like to go ahead and for the purpose of everything, go ahead and,
I was going to say, the council has not taken final action on that proposal, even though it's in front of you now, so
Okay, thanks.
however you want to handle that.
thank you very much. Would you like to make a motion to approve this?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion approved, is there a second?
Second?
Motion is second, any discussion? Roll call?
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Councilman Slakta?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Longcart?
Aye.
Okay, 19.
19, again, the word I'd like you to concentrate on here is that the council should consider pursuing water quality and quantity modeling. Again, it's not a directive that you need to go out and build a better tool or buy a better tool, but just that you should consider doing monitoring as you use various tools to make your decision. I think you've heard already that depending on the perspective and depending on the person you've heard from, there either is sufficient modeling out there already. Doesn't mean that it can't be improved, doesn't mean it can't be tweaked, but we're pretty comfortable that we have adequate tools to make decisions today, and those are being used as community development, for example, goes forward. But there's nothing wrong with saying that we can consider pursuing additional models.
Okay. Council, I've got no problem with this, mainly because of the word consider. And anything else?
I wordsmith again, but line 4, I'd like to strike the two words including development.
Okay, if that's, I think that's a mistake because that's kind of what we're worried about more than anything. It could include existing developments, how individual proposed projects including developments. There may be developments that are vested. So I would think that it's important to leave it in there, but council, what do you want to do? What's your pleasure? Is there a motion?
So moved.
You make a motion to adopt that, but you want to strike including development out of it?
Yes.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second.
Discussion?
Yes.
I think it runs counter to what most of the public's trying to do, and that's make sure that if there's development, the land is protected.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I think it would be important to leave that in there, so I won't be voting for this one. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Martin?
No.
Councilman Slakta?
No.
Mayor Nelson?
No?
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Lockhart?
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh?
No.
Okay, is there another motion?
I'll make the motion to approve as written.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve as written. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Slakta?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
No.
Councilman Gibson?
No.
Councilman Lockhart?
No.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. We are on to, wow, we made it to water quality, number one. Go ahead, have at it.
Okay. This is just indicating council's support for projects that are designed to enhance water quality. We've already talked about a couple going on in the preserve, Pine Lake Preserve and the Crew Lands. Again, we don't see any particular downside to approving this, and it's also one of those things that would be worked cooperatively through that proposed regional watershed working group.
Okay, council, what's your pleasure?
I'll move to approve.
A second.
Motion to approve in a second. Anything else?
Discussion.
Discussion? Go
I
ahead.
had some wordsmith, but, I just would like the top line to read, consider support of projects which enhance water quality.
Okay.
Well,
Oh,
I made the motion, and I think it takes all the impetus out of it, so.
okay. All right. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Councilman Slakta?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
No.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Lockhart?
No.
Okay, we are on to water quality number two.
And let me ask before we get to, does everyone have Water Quality 2 in front of them that says, in addition to the water quantity and quality projects currently funded in the city, implement the three,
No.
blah, 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 blah?
No.
No, we have quantity.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Some of the packets went out with the wrong one there. I apologize for that. But here's the water quality.
We have a 3-hole punch down here.
I have the one that you said.
Well, again, some of you may have the wrong one, so I'm just going to pass out Water Quality 2.
Got it.
I
Some of
don't
the
have
packets
water.
had Water
Yeah.
Quantity
Have
2
water
in
quality
there
2.
twice.
You have quality?
Yeah,
Thank you.
I have the wrong one.
My apologies for that.
Thank
Water Quality 2 basically says that we have a 2011 Bonita Springs Stormwater Master Plan Phase 2. It was an update, and there are some projects listed in there, and this is a recommendation that we go ahead and try to implement 3 of those projects that were identified and haven't been done yet. I do need to say, though, and Matt's here, he can give you some more detail, but I think from Public Works perspective, the fact that those projects were identified doesn't necessarily mean that they're the best bang for the buck type projects. In other words, yeah, they probably would not be bad things to do at some point, but not to necessarily consider them priorities. There are some other projects that public, at least from their perspective, they would consider to be priority projects. Not indicating that these are something that we should not do, but afraid that the emphasis on this, if it's construed wrong, would move their priority attention from other projects where they're going to get more benefit. So hopefully, does that kind of make sense?
I guess? Yeah, council? Bill?
I'm looking at the implementation of Stormwater Master Plan that shows a substantial amount of monies over the next 5 years.
Reason.
Help me with what you just said.
Yeah, I mean, basically, again, if it's just construed as a general recommendation to keep the projects all moving, we have no problem with that. If it's to identify 3 particular projects and move them up on the priority list as opposed to some others, then I think from Public Works perspective, that might not be giving you the best bang for your buck.
Okay, well, there's substantial money in the,
Oh, yeah, it's not a matter of not having the
over
funds.
$2 million, so that's good.
So, give me a hint.
Let me,
From a staff standpoint, your suggested language would not refer to the 3 water quality projects.
yeah, I guess we would just want to keep it more general that we should be pursuing whatever water quality and quantity projects that would give us the most benefit.
Okay. So the language should be maybe something to the effect of the city should continue to pursue water quality projects?
Frankly, if this was rejected entirely, it's not going to change what we do. That is what we're going to be doing anyway.
Okay.
Ah, I see.
Okay.
It's true.
Yep.
Okay.
Are there only 3 water quality projects in the 2011 Stormwater Master Plan?
And I believe
Or
there might-
is it they're choosing
comes
3
Matt.
to?
He's been chomping a bit back there.
If you don't mind,
No, go ahead.
Matt Feeney, Public Works Director for the record. The Water Quality Master Plan Phase 2 attempted to identify projects that remove nutrients from the Imperial River, which is impaired for dissolved oxygen, and the primary nutrient pollutant is nitrogen. So it tried to identify projects on publicly owned land as well as privately owned land that can remove nitrogen. It was an early broad brushstroke that was done while the rule was being passed. So the projects, yes, there are 3 that are in the DRGR area that were looked at.
Okay.
The truth is some of those projects can be expanded upon. And the primary example is the Pine Lake Preserve, which you guys already addressed, which is just due north of one of the projects that was identified in the master plan. To remove nitrogen, you need a lot of land. So if we coupled one of those projects that's identified in the plan with rehydration of the Pine Lake Preserve, which is not in our Stormwater Master Plan Phase 2, we would get a much more beneficial and economically feasible project. So what we didn't want to be is tied to 3 specific conceptual projects in the Phase 2 master plan. We wanted the flexibility to expand those projects as we do the engineering on them.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with just striking this, eliminating it then.
Okay, is that a motion?
So moved.
We have motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have motion and a second. Any other discussion?
And what are we doing?
We're striking this
Totally.
because staff feels pretty confident that we are considering this in a broader brush. We're
Thank you.
actually doing these
Thank
other
you.
things. Okay. Motion and second to strike. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Councilman Slackman?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Lockhart?
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Okay. Number 3.
Number 3 goes to the idea of establishing best management practices and low-impact design standards. So it would be changes to our review process and regulatory process. It is one that the task force is indicating would probably need to go outside of our own capabilities, hire a consultant to help us put some of this together, and they gave you their best guesses as to completion time and to approximate costs. Community development can weigh in, as can the task force members if you need any more direction on this.
Okay, and by best management practice and low impact design standards, is it just in reference to water quality only, or is that because that best management practices and low impact design standards is a pretty huge thing? So is it just, are we just talking as it applies to water quality?
Well, again,
I'm
this is-
just saying because
yeah,
there's a
there was no restrictive language there. They may have been the intent, but I don't want to speak for the task force members.
Scott. It could be as quick as a yes or no.
Yeah, no, I think it's quality and quantity. So,
Of
but
water.
it's water issues.
It's
yeah.
water issues. Okay, just being sure.
And I think to the extent that you can lead by example and tell people that they have to develop with water quality and quantity in mind.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes.
Yeah, I'm just going to move that we strike this entirely. I look at it as a development standard. That's how I read it.
Okay. Let me ask another question too. Is this something that you were considering for the entire community, or?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we
so-
did not put just in the DRGR
Yeah.
because, again, the water quality and quantity issues are citywide.
And so is the water.
Believe it or not.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Yes, come on forward.
We were hoping also for, there are already like 700 homes, properties can be built out there. We were hoping it did not apply to large development, but to individual. We'd thrown around a couple different ideas about having homes raised, stilted a little bit more instead of, you dig and make a mound, you dig and make a mound. And so it was a broader stroke. We were trying to get best management practices and low-impact design, more pervious surfaces instead of impervious surfaces for even individual homes being built. It wasn't a major development idea.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I have no problem with this, mainly because it says establish applicable best management practices, which the ones that we don't think are applicable, we won't do. And the other thing is that before we do this, I don't think we need to go very deep into the cost of it, because before we do this, you're going to come, if we decide to do this, you would bring it back and say, here's what it's going to cost in order for us to do this adjustment, here's the scope, et cetera, et cetera. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
If we decide
Again,
to
these were
go
just
this route.
approximate, so you had an idea of the range that we were talking about.
Okay, all right. Is there a motion to do this or to not do this?
I make a motion to strike this entirely.
There's a motion to strike this. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second to strike this. Any discussion? I won't be supporting that motion because I think this is something that we probably should consider doing, and the way to consider doing it is to adopt it and have staff look into it and bring us back a proposal. So anyway, but there is a motion and a second. Any other discussion? The motion and a second is to strike this in its entirety. Roll call.
Councilman Slakta?
No.
Mayor Nelson?
No.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Lockhart?
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh?
No.
Councilwoman Martin?
No.
Okay, motion fails. Is there another motion?
Make a motion to accept this in state.
There's a motion to
Second.
accept it, and there's a second. Any other discussion? Yes?
I just think you had mentioned no need to identify a number here of 25,000. Should we strike that and strike the 12 months, or at the very end there, cost of 25,000?
Yeah, I really don't have any problem with it being the way it is, because I think reality will hit us square in the face and take care of all of that. So not worried about it. But thank you. And then there is a motion and a second to do this in its entirety. Does the motion stand?
Yes.
Roll call.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
No.
Councilman Gibson?
No.
Councilman Lockhart?
No.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Councilman
Okay.
Slakta?
Aye.
Oh, sorry. I got to cheat you right out of one there, buddy. Water quality
Anticipation.
number 4.
This goes to our requirements under the BMAP, and basically it's an indication that we want to, wherever a development order is necessary, codify our language, make sure that our language is clear about what a new development's regulation standards would be in terms of meeting those requirements. Community development indicated that they don't have any problem with this approach and can fill you in on any more detail if you think it's necessary.
Okay, and this refers what now in the impaired, just for everybody's edification, in someone needs to describe to the people out there in the impaired Imperial River Basin
Yes,
what that includes.
Bigger than the DRGR.
It's bigger than the DRGR, isn't it?
Got a couple of people volunteered.
You need to sit closer, pal.
It's by design. Matt Feeney, for the record. It would really be easier to show with a map, but the Imperial River Basin, that almost say 98% of the DRGR study area lies within the Imperial River's freshwater basin, which has been designated as impaired for dissolved oxygen, which leads us to the nitrogen reductions.
So
with the water
east
quality.
to west, tell me the scope, the limits of that east to west approximately, if you know that.
It's easiest to start with the western boundary would be the eastern face of the old US 41 bridge.
Right.
And then it moves mostly in a northeasterly direction out to
Probably following the Imperial River.
following in a northeasterly direction. Almost, you see the farm fields that are in the northeast corner of your map. Basically, if you can draw a swath that comes down
Okay.
to the Imperial River. But like I said, about 98% of the DRGR area that lies within the city of Bonita Springs lies within that basin. Just
Okay.
only a very small portion on the westerly component that lies up next to the interstate is not encompassed.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now, Council, what's your pleasure?
Make the motion as it stands.
Motion to approve as stands. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. And Peter, what would you like to change?
Mike's up.
Go ahead. I'm just teasing.
No
Mike,
anticipation.
Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead, Mike.
I'm just asking, is this something we're already doing from the 2012 BMAP requirements, or?
I
See,
told
Matt,
you,
stay
I told
close,
you, Matt.
buddy.
There's
Stay
seats right up
close.
front, man.
You're going to get frequent flyer miles for this.
In fact,
No.
just stay there. Just stand there.
No.
Matt Feeney again. Answer is no. Not on private development. Basically, the city has been saddled with that reduction. So this would, as it's written, would allow that requirement to transfer to private development within their
New
new development within
private,
their.
new development.
Redevelopment, additions, things like that, or just new development?
Whatever development that would require a development order.
Development order, so.
Yeah. Including businesses. Right? Yep. That's development order, right? Okay.
I
see
defer
it.
to my community development.
And
brethren.
the part of this I want to point out again is that we decide today to do this, to approve this. If we do, then it begins a process, is what it does. And begins a process, and then you bring everybody to the table, all interested parties, and they have a big debate, and they'll tell you whether it's the stupidest thing ever or whether it's something we can really do. And that's where we'll go with this. Yes.
There's been a motion in a second, so we have to vote on that as written here. But if for any reason that does not pass, I would like to move to strike this in its entirety.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Simmons,
No.
Councilman Gibson,
No.
Councilman Longcart,
No.
Councilman McIntosh.
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin.
Aye.
Councilman Slakta.
No.
Mayor Nelson.
Aye. Okay. Motion does not carry. Is there another motion?
I'd like to make a motion to strike this in its entirety.
Okay. There's a motion to strike. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
There's a motion and a second, and now
Discussion.
there's discussion.
Just help me understand what the concern is. If we're trying to reduce levels of nitrogen and so on, what is the concern?
Well, I mean, we've got some technical terms in there, but it's a development standard.
I don't see it but
Okay.
that's your motion, okay.
Okay. So any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Gibson,
Aye.
Councilman Longcart.
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh.
Nope.
Councilwoman Martin.
No.
I'm going to change my
Slakta?
vote to no.
Okay.
Just, no.
No. No.
No, sorry.
Go ahead.
Mayor Nelson.
No.
Councilman Simmons.
Aye.
So the motion fails. Is there another motion? We'll take one more shot at this.
Is there a way, Peter, that we can, I'm sorry, may I ask?
No, go ahead.
Is there a way we can modify the language to make you comfortable that if development comes, that we at least have standards placed on them?
I would suggest perhaps you should talk to Councilman Slakka because he was
I apologize.
the vote there.
I
Councilman
assume-
Slakka, is there something, you voted no on both those, so is there something that you would like to change?
I would like to, at this point in time, I'd like to keep it as is.
You would like to go ahead and
Keep it
make,
as is.
would you like to make a motion to adopt as written?
That's already failed, right?
That's,
He's
I'm
reconsidering his vote.
reconsidering it, yes.
Okay.
And he made the motion. Is there a second? I'll make the second.
Okay.
There's a motion and a second to adopt it as written. All right? Any other discussion? Roll call.
Councilman Longcart.
No.
Councilman McIntosh.
I'm voting to accept it, right? I'm confused. Aye.
Yes.
Councilwoman Martin.
Aye.
Councilman Slakta.
Aye.
Mayor Nelson.
Aye.
Councilman Simmons.
No.
Councilman Gibson.
No.
And that one was 3.5 to 3.5.
It surely was. Okay, so we've adopted number 4. We are on to number
5.
Number 5. Adding to our inventory.
Of open space, by buying land from willing sellers, and the task force again was very careful to include the language about buying land from willing sellers. They were not talking about eminent domain, they were not talking about other types of takings, but basically being able to identify and work with willing sellers to increase our inventory. It does not talk about a funding source, although it does indicate that we would pursue all available funding sources.
Okay, council, what's your pleasure?
Motion to approve as written.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve is written. Any discussion?
Oh my gosh.
Roll call.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Councilman Slapka?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Longcart?
Aye.
Okay, number 6. Woohoo! Add incentives.
Okay, this next one has to do with a program that we're already undertaking through Public Works. Dave Licardi, as you know, has been very active with his outreach to the community about pond maintenance, use of fertilizers, all the things we can do to help the environment in small ways. And this is just a recommendation that I think the task force, without speaking for them, I think they were very impressed with the outreach efforts we're making so far. And this was an acknowledgement of that, and just making a recommendation that we try to add to Dave Licardi's tools by giving him some incentives, as well as just the educational outreach. I'm not sure what those would be, but to try to develop some way to encourage more people to participate.
Okay, council, what's your pleasure?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Is there a second? There's a second. Any other discussion?
I would, I would change the word to consider adding as opposed to add, but
You will be considering it when it comes back to us, but my
Considering it.
Okay.
my issue is just what would the incentives be,
Well, we'll find out.
So
And
that
to
would-
be determined.
yeah.
And that's what we'll decide. That's what that's what we'll be considering.
Yeah.
So, anyway, motion and a second. Roll call.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Councilman Slapka?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Longcart?
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Okay.
Water supply.
Water supply.
As you know, the city attorney is currently working with BSU on the wellfield protection ordinance, and this was in anticipation of that, because the task force did hear from BSU fairly early on in their process, so this is just encouraging the city and BSU to try to accomplish completion of that in 2015.
Okay. And keyword encourage BSU. To hear. What's your pleasure?
I think it's limiting. I just think we should strike to restrict / prohibit contaminants near the potable supply well fields. I mean, is that the only area?
Meaning like everywhere.
Right, how about just everywhere?
Yeah.
Rather than limiting it.
Well, I don't think you can prohibit
Again,
contaminants.
This is a wellfield protection
Aren't you coming
ordinance. back?
We just voted on that yesterday, that you're coming back.
Yes,
with
if I
that?
may. First of all, it's the wellfield protection ordinance, so it's where areas where we have well fields. So if there were well fields in the other part of the city, such in Collier County, you have well fields all over the place. That would make it more appropriate. As far as the purpose of the ordinance is to make sure you have abandoned wells removed, make sure you have contaminants. So the language is pretty much on form with what the requirements are in Chapter 163, as well as the environmental chapters of Florida statutes.
But
Okay.
not limited to DRGR, just anywhere
Well,
we have well fields.
You have, well, yeah, wherever there's a well field, it's not limited to that, but you can't go, yeah.
Yeah.
In other words, you can't have a gas station next to the well field, but you don't want to subject that to the whole city because you wouldn't have gas stations anywhere. So anyway, there you have it. So it's just well fields, okay?
Gotcha.
All right, what's your pleasure?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, is there any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Slapka?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Longcart?
Aye.
Gotta keep it fun.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Okay, and let's see, water supply, drinking water, yeah, sure, I got some right here. Create a plan. All right, what would you like to do here, John?
Well, this again is just an acknowledgement that filter marshes and other areas that can hold water help with the recharge of the drinking water system, and the idea is that as part of the work of that regional watershed group that we'll get to under the miscellaneous requirements, recommendations, is that that group try to create a plan to make sure that all those opportunities are not missed for doing that. I think the only concern, maybe heartburn that staff might have had about this, and I don't want to speak for the Water Management District, but I think they were concerned about the logistics of how this would actually come together, how much work would be involved, and whether or not, again, from staff's point of view, it would be limited to the DRGR. It doesn't specifically say that.
Okay. Council?
I'd just like to strike the last 4 lines, where I guess it would be 5 technically. This policy should be coordinated, and the rest of that language, I just moved to strike that.
So you don't think that it should be coordinated by the Water Management District and the watershed working group?
And have a time on it.
And you don't think it should be
Well,
time?
actually, at no cost to the city, my apology.
But if it's not coordinated by them, though, then we're taking on the responsibility. It would have a cost to us, so.
Okay.
So.
That's why more than one person reads this.
Okay.
So thank you.
So, Mike?
I would say pass it as is.
I'll second.
I mean, again, the time
Do you
frame,
want
but
the
I mean,
time
it could
limitation
be-
in it?
We could
We already
start it
seconded,
sooner.
Mike.
Okay. Yeah.
There's a motion and a second to approve as it is, and I had a little bit of I don't think you're not gonna do it in 3 months, but we're not gonna actually
Hold anybody to that.
Right.
whip ourselves for that. I think that's just a reality there. There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Councilman Slapta?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Lockhart?
Aye.
Okay. Number 3.
Number 3 was just an acknowledgement that the existence of private drinking water wells and septic tanks out in the DRGR area is probably not the best planning tool. And so this just is a recommendation that we try to, whenever possible, plan future development so that it enhances the ability to eliminate some of those.
Okay.
Motion to approve is written.
There's a motion to approve as written. Is there a second?
Second.
A second. Let's see. Discussion.
So going by the current 1 in 10 acres, I mean, I don't know how we go about reducing or eliminating the private wells or the septic. I mean, is that something BSU can run pipes to, individual properties that are on,
Well, that's what this is
small
all
tenor? I mean, this sounds to me like it's more geared towards if we increase development out there, which I didn't think we were considering at this time.
Well, again, I don't think this is encouraging you to increase development. I think it's just saying that if there is development out there, that you seek to use that opportunity to eliminate some of the private wells and septic systems that are out there.
Wouldn't we do that anyway? I mean,
I don't.
Well, another thing it would do,
that came up anyway.
it would encourage developers wherever they develop to cluster things instead of spreading them out, and as a matter of efficiency so far as lines and their supply. So I don't know. It does, but it doesn't. It just certainly doesn't give anybody the right to do anything. Go ahead.
I'm just going to say, I mean, I agree with Mike, and I'd even take it a step further. I mean, I think this is outside of the scope of what we were asked to do here, and I just moved to strike it
That's definitely-
entirely.
That's a definite
Okay,
water quality.
Tori, please come forward.
There are areas, particularly down in the Keys, where the city government and the county has gone ahead and eliminated, raised funding, gotten state funding and federal funding in order to eliminate, even if BSU cannot afford to do it, there are other ways of approaching the problem of having a possibility of another 700 wells and another 700 new septic tanks that are already in the 1 per 10 acres. So it's just a way for the city to look at other sources of funding and ways to try to encourage and eliminate the wells and the septics out there. It doesn't necessarily, you may decide that a public-private partnership through some development would be the way to fund this, but I'd hate to see it taken out altogether because we don't want to fund it just through new development. There are other ways to look at this that have been quite effective in various parts of the state.
Okay. Yes.
But I just know from personal experience that up north, there's areas that weren't allowed to have septic systems, and they have those toilets where everything stays inside. I just want to make sure that we're not going to say anybody that's going to build a house out there on their 1 and 10, you can't have a septic anymore, so you need to have one of those, mulch making toilets.
Yeah, and again, this isn't the policy. This is just trying to say that we are determined to eliminate these things, to seek to eliminate them. So I don't think there's any danger here that we're creating a policy in itself. We're looking to create a policy. Perhaps any policy that comes before you that's proposed, you'll have a chance to whack away at. Everyone will. But anyway, there's a motion and a second to adopt this as written. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Councilman Slechta?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
No.
Councilman Gibson?
No.
Councilman Lockhart?
No.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Okay, that passes. And we are to number 4. And just to let everybody know, at lunchtime for council, and we would like to invite the task force members to stay. We're going to have lunch brought in. Is it in?
No, it's not in yet.
I didn't even know it was coming.
We're
We get our money back if it's not here in 20 minutes?
We are about 20.
Sweet.
We are about 20 minutes away,
Okay, good.
Let's finish it.
but it is coming.
That's 6 more items. We got that, man. Okay, number 4, water supply.
Number 4 is the exception to the rule that I mentioned in my opening remarks about the task force was very particular about not identifying particular properties or particular property owners. And this is the exception regarding Citrus Park. But on the other hand, I think it's fair to point out that the task force was very sensitive to not imposing any kind of mandatory requirements on Citrus Park owners or anything too burdensome. That's why you'll see language like cooperative approach, fair financial resolution involving multiple jurisdictions. It's just an idea that if possible, a plan should be developed to try to get Citrus Park off of their current wastewater treatment plant. Now, again, you've heard from Chuck Bassinet, I believe, in the past, who reacted on behalf of his clients about this. The intent of the task force was not to, threaten or
Sure.
try to pressure anybody, merely to acknowledge that it might be in the best interest of everyone to see if that could be done.
I would have no problem with this if it didn't say Citrus Park, because I think that, I don't think we should be calling anybody out like that. I would say that you plan to determine how water treatment plants, independent water treatment plants, can be discontinued. That's been VSU's goal for a long time. They've done a great job at it, and I think it's a laudable goal that we should support. And I would suggest that to council. I'd make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
So there's a motion and a second, and all we're doing is making it to where it's generic.
generic,
It's
right.
more generic, and it doesn't name a particular individual or entity. I don't think it's fair.
Understood.
Questions?
Task force member, are you okay with that? Okay.
Okay.
And I would just add, I guess, in our theme here, of arbitrary times, so I would move to strike that, but motion's been made.
Again, this was just an acknowledgement that this is something that's not going to happen overnight.
Right.
Not so far, it hasn't. Yes, Janet.
I'm good.
You good? Yes?
There's another reference to Citrus Park later on this
We took
Oh, yeah,
this
right.
motion,
Yep.
so
Yep.
we need to take it out as well.
Good point, good point.
Oh, yes, and it does it twice.
The second Citrus Park.
Okay, roll call.
Councilman Slechta?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Lockhart?
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Okay, and this is now we get to the miscellaneous stuff. So go ahead.
Okay, so the first one that you see there is just an acknowledgement that increases in density and intensity may occur. And again, this is not saying that it should occur or that they're encouraging it to occur, but if the city council at some point determines that that's in the best interest of the city and the DRGR, the recommendation is that wherever possible, the mechanisms that they've suggested through some of these recommendations, to the best extent possible, be put in place. Things like the low-impact design standards that we already talked about. So, again, it's not a conclusion that that's going to happen, but a what if.
Okay, yes.
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mayor Nelson.
Aye.
Councilman Simmons.
Aye.
Councilman Gibson.
Expected
Aye.
that for you.
Councilman Longcor.
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh.
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin.
Aye.
Councilman Slatter.
Aye.
Okay, number 10, or number 10. I'm getting ahead of ourselves because there's not 10. Number 2. Any new development with 10 units or more?
This reflects a problem that Public Works and Code Enforcement communicated to the task force, and they responded to. We often have situations where we have housing developments that have their own maintenance systems, stormwater maintenance systems, but there is no entity for us to talk to about their obligations and the standards that we expect them to live up to. Some of the older developments, for example, the homeowners associations don't exist anymore. So this would basically put in a requirement that if there are 10 units or more, that there is going to be a mandatory master association, someone in the future that we could actually hold responsible, communicate with, work with, in terms of making sure that things are maintained the way they should be.
And the way that this would happen again is that if we decide to do this to try to implement this, our community development would go ahead and make the proposal, give us the pluses and minuses, how it would be implemented, the whole works, right? You don't have to get up here. That's just letting everybody know. So, Council, what's your pleasure?
Just a question.
Yes.
If you, John, if there was a developer who took part of old Bonita and put in 5 duplexes, that would have to have a homeowners association?
I don't know if I can answer that in terms of when it would kick in or not.
John
Community
can.
development might be.
Well, I mean, if it's 10 units or more.
Well, that's.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Anything that would be required to provide a subdivision plat that would show 10 units or more. So duplexes generally are 2 units on one lot. A townhouse would have individual property. So it's the total number of lots as opposed to the total number of, well, you can present it back to you however you want. It says units, however you want.
So it's not door fronts?
Well, this is, I misspoke. So yes, this says 10 units. I was thinking lots, so that was my mistake. So
However, we can craft this to be whatever we want it to be.
That's exactly
correct?
right.
We could say 15 units.
Whichever number
we
you
could
so
do whatever we
choose.
wanted to.
And we're going to be requiring anybody that has more than 4 lots or creates 4 lots to have a plat anyway, which is going to require an association responsible for maintenance. So, in all practical purposes, we are. Correct. A
Yeah,
duplex would be 2
but these are
units.
land development code changes. It's going to go before public comment. People are going to come up here. We're going to go through the whole thing and.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That answers my question.
Okay, good.
But,
Yes, Mike.
So this is citywide, and does it only pertain to if they had a pond or a canal, or what if somebody's developing in the center where there's nothing, you know?
Every development that requires a development order is going to be required to provide stormwater treatment. Some of those are permitted locally. Some of those are large enough they're required to go through the water management district. But regardless, maintenance of those stormwater systems will be assigned to the association for that plat.
Yes.
So
Go ahead. Peter.
anything that requires a subdivision that requires stormwater will have an association responsible for that stormwater system.
Yep.
Are we mixing development standards here with water?
No, sir. I think that what you're looking at here is something that is generally in practice, but we will bring back some options to see if council would like to do different things.
Yes.
I just want to point out, since 1986, the South Florida Water Management District had required Lee County and all the communities to have mandatory homeowners associations for a certain threshold. So if this number is higher than that existing threshold, we'll still go to that lower number.
Do we
Okay.
know what that number is?
It used to be 4.
And
subdivision
again,
4.
it's irrelevant in this particular case because you're going to bring it back to us, and if we want it
Always.
lower or we want it higher or we don't want it at all, we'll tell it to go away, one way or the other. That's right.
Well,
that's
some things we have in place already.
I'm just trying to get you out of speculating.
I think
There, Audrey,
somebody's
would you
hungry.
like to continue to speculate on what that number is right now?
No.
No, thank you very much.
I just wanted.
I'll move to approve.
know.
I'll motion to approve, yes.
There's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any other discussion?
Yes.
Bill.
Currently, excuse me, we have we have many homeowners associations behind gates. Is this something that's brand new?
No, sir. This is something that's in existence, and like I said.
Well, it's already there.
Yes, sir. and we are following the rules that the city attorney laid out. It is 4 units. If you vote for us to bring something back to you, we will bring something back to you for your review. However, just know that the city is applying homeowners association requirements to developments that subdivide property.
The threshold is higher though right now.
My question is if we already have these mandatory master homeowners association already on the books in the land development code, why is it on a water task force? I don't understand that.
Well, because the threshold is higher now. You have to be a bigger development right now in order to have the mandatory ones as under our rules.
Yes, sir. I think their concern was historic associations that had either gone defunct or really weren't well established, and making sure that situation doesn't continue. But to be honest with you, I'm speculating, and I don't want to speculate any further.
Well, now I'm confused. Now you're telling us that we already have this regulation?
Yes, sir.
Of course.
Well, then there's no use in doing it. What the hell?
I was just, yeah, right.
And John, it doesn't have to be gated, right?
It makes no difference.
Makes no difference.
So, sorry. Go ahead, John.
If I can weigh in.
Please.
It may be that the regulation is already in place that would cover this. I don't think the task force knew that. I know I didn't know that. It didn't come up when I reviewed this with the various departments. But again, as the mayor indicated, for today's purposes, I don't think that really matters. It's the concept, I think, that the task force is trying to get across, is that in the past, older associations have gone defunct. We're just looking to make sure that going forward, that there is a homeowners association that we can talk to about maintaining these things. If the regulation is already in place, that's what community development's going to come back and tell you, and it's a done deal. If it's not already in place, they'll be making a recommendation to put it in place.
Yeah, Pete.
There's been a motion in a second, so we have to vote, but I would encourage you to vote this down, and then we just strike it.
Okay, there is a motion and a second. Any other discussion? I mean, I think worst case scenario, it's redundant. And Audrey, I apologize. I misunderstood this. Anyway, there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Councilman Simmons?
No.
Councilman Gibson?
No.
Councilman Longcor?
No.
Councilman McIntosh?
Nope.
Councilwoman Martin?
No, we don't need.
Councilman Slakta?
No.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye?
Can I just make a quick comment?
Doesn't pass. Is there a motion to strike this?
So moved.
There's a motion to strike.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to strike. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Gibson?
Aye.
Councilman Longcor?
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin?
I'm so confused at this point. Does this mean we're striking it from what we
Yes.
already do?
No.
No. Just
Okay, so then aye.
Aye.
Councilman Slakta? Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
I know, I was
Councilman
confused.
Simmons?
Aye.
Okay.
Quick comment?
Yes.
Hey, Steve, welcome to the club. I made a motion a year or so back that I voted against too, so feels good, huh?
Okay.
I didn't know it was a club.
So.
A very
Section
exclusive club.
3-329 of the.
Okay. Eye on the prize, guys. Number 3.
Okay, 3 is the Regional Watershed Working Group that we've made reference throughout the discussion here today. And again, the concept that was being put forth by the task force is that this be an informal working group, not a designated arm of either the city or one of the agencies. As a matter of fact, that would be counterproductive because we don't necessarily want them to be in a position where they can't talk to each other outside of a recognized meeting. We'd like to just have them informal. The idea is to get together, make sure that all of the entities, both within and without the city limits, talk to each other about these various projects and make sure they're sharing the necessary information. We don't see this as a great burden on any particular agency in terms of logistical support or it might be who buys lunch that time.
Good. Okay, yes.
Is there a sunshine problem with this? Entities, because the fire department is a state elected board, right?
I'm sorry?
Is fire department in this?
I don't necessarily see the fire departments as being part of this.
Oh. Okay, I missed. Oh, I see. All right.
Okay, and so they would not be advisory in nature to this city council?
Right, this is just a working group so that, for example, somebody from DEP makes sure that they're talking to somebody from DOT, and we all kind of share information about projects that we're working on.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve is written.
And is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Councilman Lockhart,
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh.
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin,
Aye.
Councilman Slakta.
Aye.
Mayor Nelson.
Aye.
Councilman Simmons.
Aye.
Councilman Gibson.
Aye.
Okay, number 4, fracking, everybody's favorite.
And actually, Audrey indicated that she may need to do some further research on this to, I'll let her speak for herself, but whether or not it's something that we're preempted from doing or have the authority to do may be questionable, but again, from task force point of view, they were just looking to send a clear signal that there are certain things that they did not think was appropriate within the city.
I'd
Okay.
like the motion to approve it as it is, and we'll work through whatever our restrictions are, but I think we need to send a message on this.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman McIntosh.
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin.
Aye.
Councilman Slakta.
Aye.
Mayor Nelson.
Aye.
Councilman Simmons.
Aye.
Councilman Gibson.
Aye.
Councilman Lockhart.
Aye.
Okay, now here's the real fun one. Who wants to make a motion to do this one? Bill, come on. Just jump right in there.
Stricken.
No way, Jose.
Second.
There's a motion and a second not to do this. Is there any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Martin.
Aye.
Councilman Slakta.
Aye.
Mayor Nelson.
Aye.
Councilman Simmons.
Aye.
Councilman Gibson.
Aye.
Councilman Lockhart.
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh.
Aye.
Okay. Let's see.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure, go ahead.
Before we break off, can we take a look again at water quantity number 1?
Number
That was my,
one.
yeah, thank you. I was gonna ask the same thing.
My concern is that, since that was brought up very early on in the process, that there may have been a misunderstanding as to what the intent of the task force was in this regard. And again, it wasn't to encourage development in any way, merely to recognize that right now we have a certain standard in terms of retaining and controlling the water on any particular development. And the idea was to ratchet that up a little bit, make something that's good and working well better and work even better.
And approving this would be consistent with other direction that we've given.
Just
It
did.
would seem.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Council, does anyone want to reconsider?
I do.
Okay, would you like to make a motion to approve this?
So move.
There's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. We can't do
You want
that.
to do that?
I don't know where I went, but it was
Yeah.
like some other meeting somewhere. I don't know. Roll call.
Councilman McIntosh.
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin.
Aye.
Councilman Slakta.
Aye.
Mayor Nelson.
Aye.
Councilman Simmons.
No.
Councilman Gibson.
No.
Councilman Lockhart.
No.
Okay, motion carries. Let's see. I think that takes care of it. John, do you have anything else for us, staff?
No, thank you.
Nothing else?
We thank the council, and lunch is here.
Okay, and just before everybody gets up, just clarification, this list of things that we've, excuse me, this list of things that we've approved, the staff is going to take this, you're going to compile all these things, and you're going to come on back at some date and time and go ahead and give us a list of things you're going to do and.
Right, it'll be at one of your February meetings. We'll have a list of the recommendations, which you will then be in a position to accept and approve.
And Mayor,
Yes,
just for clarification, none of this is written in stone,
okay,
right?
right. Okay, listen, I'm going to explain something to everybody. Although there is no public comment at this time, I'm going to entertain brief public comment.
Very brief.
We're gonna limit it to a singular statement or something, okay?
3
And
sentences.
then we'll get out of here. Go ahead.
Yeah, but it was commented earlier by a task force member that my earlier presentation was made as if I did not support the work of the task force and their recommendations. That is not true. In fact, I strongly support their recommendations, including several that this council significantly changed. And I want to say that the workshop was a great example of a partnership of diverse opinions working towards resolution of a difficult and important subject. I thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Come on up. We're gonna make these real brief, so don't be upset with me. Go ahead, Ron.
Well, I am upset with you, Mayor, because, you know, you said earlier that we'd all have an opportunity to address things.
If you want to
and-
use your time to talk about how
Yeah,
nasty I am,
I'll
you go
use my
ahead,
time
but
to do
your
this,
clock's
that-
ticking.
That you did allow numerous times for the task force to come up and
That was.
add to the scene here today.
Right.
However, it's been disbanded, right? They're members of the public,
Right.
and we're told that we only have one issue to discuss at this point, when why wouldn't we be allowed to, as you were going downstream with the meeting,
Hmm.
address items before you voted on them? We could have offered some, I think, valuable input before you addressed each and every item.
Okay.
All right?
And thank you very much for your comments.
That's it?
Thanks, Ed.
I'm
That's
limit-
it.
You're limiting us to
Yes,
the.
yes,
to
I
that.
am, because right
Because
now the
you're
agenda
hungry
itself
and you
says
wanna
there's
have
no
lunch,
public comment
Mayor?
this time.
Because you're
Have a
hungry and
seat,
you wanna
sir.
have lunch?
Have a seat.
I sure will.
Thank you
No,
very
I'll walk
much.
out the door,
Next
but
speaker,
thanks
please.
anyway.
Yes, I recommend two things in the DRGR area: solar energy plant system and thoroughbred racing farm operations.
Tori's got to like that.
Yes.
Hey, thanks, and thanks for allowing a little public comment. Good work overall. I wish when you amended that last thing you just did, that you added the 2 inches and maybe more than 10%. That would have been helpful, but there's always tomorrow. The other thing is, I'm sorry you voted down, but maybe you can address it on council about the HOAs, because like Imperial Harbor, which we've been trying to work on the water around there for a long time, has been trying among themselves to get an HOA. They never had one. They were developed, and they can't figure out how to get the money together to fix their stuff. So I don't know how you mandate one after the thing's been developed. I don't know how you do that. But if you can help them somehow, we've been trying for years. Right, Carl? Yeah. So that's great. The other thing that's in the comp plan that didn't come up, and I kept asking task force members, Spring Creek overlay, creek overlays, and Imperial River overlay, which is in our comp plan under policy 1.7 point something or other, 1 or 4 or something. It needs to be looked at. We hit it at different ways, but we don't really quite get there. Thanks for all your hard work. I know it was tough,
Thank you.
but you got lots of considerations, so that's great. Did a good job.
Thank you. Anyone else this time? Thank you very much. Council, a good job.